house, and I'm just gonna relax. All right, man, you enjoy it, and keep an eye on your robot, man. I don't want it to go rogue. It's not gonna go rogue. 1 hour later. Hey, what's up, man? It's gone. What the hell did I tell you? Now look, don't freak out. I have it under control. I didn't expect it to rewrite its code in proximity gate, but I did expect it to get lost, so there's a tracker in it, and I'm tracking it right now. Is it anywhere near me? No. Oh, thank God.
That's the same thing.
Thank you for telling me. Thanks for the ride, y'all. I appreciate it.
But yeah. Hello, everyone. This is the video of the anti-memetics division.
I run a podcast solo. No producer, no editor, no tech
We'll
skills,
be
just
recording this
oversight.
online.
I get high quality
And
podcast recordings
see,
right
and
from
if
my room.
watching this
And
on
I'm not
video,
even using
hello,
expensive
everyone.
equipment.
I'm creating
The anti-memetics division of the SCP
might be split, but who knows? This
Foundation
will be
is one devoted
put into potentially 8, 6, or 3 parts. 8, 6, or 3 parts, depending
to
on
researching and
into-
containing anti-memes,
currently they
anomalous
have 4 episodes that I can currently access.
Power on. Bluetooth mode. Bluetooth connected.
that erase themselves from all perception. It's
We'll be
anomalies
watching
that erase themselves.
Anti-memetics division. Oh yeah, we also have things on enhanced speed. We'll have it on 1.25.
From all perception. It's a category of anomalies that I've looked at multiple times before, even doing a whole video on anti-memetics. But this will be a series of tales that make up a single story about
I will be doing also some things while reacting to it.
the division and its chief, Marion Wheeler. As you can imagine,
Oh, the anti-memetics division. Watch that. Spoilers for the story that is to come. If anyone doesn't really care about spoilers, anti-memetics division. Well, it's not really spoilers, actually. Think about it. Anti-memetics division is a division dealing in anti-memetics. The division is, like a job in the SCP Foundation is like a nightmare. Most SCP Foundation employee jobs that aren't literally D-class is basically heaven compared to an anti-memetics division. Because somewhere at the start, you basically had to be as prepared as you can be to defeat the most powerful anti-memetics anomalies day one. That is the record. Because you can never really gain experience. Experience is never useful. Because when the anomaly wipes your mind, wipes your memory, and attempts to consume you. Oh, wait. Since I was going to try to use the piano on this little device. You will only have what you had since the beginning. This will be important on the first part of the story. I decided not to put too much things that could be spoilers.
it's going to get pretty weird. I'm going to be tackling this one more like an audiobook, reading most of the narration as is and folding in the dialogue into the narration. I'll throw in a few editor's notes here. I'm going to be tackling into the narration. I'll be reading most of the narration as is and folding in the dialogue into the narration. I'll throw in a few editor's notes here and there, though. With that, let's take a look.
Yeah, it's really a giant tail. Well, yeah. Actually, fun fact, the creator also made a independent book, though with, of course, all of the SCP Foundation tales, SCP Foundation examples stripped away from it. Still very entertaining story and book. Of course, if you know about the SCP Foundation, you have a billion more times of understanding, and it's much more funner. That's why we all love the SCP Foundation. The context of what the story is in and the placement.
We begin with an SCP article, although it's likely quite familiar for most SCP fans, but it's worth a refresher since it's pretty...
Oh yeah, I might get to put a link in the video. Going to the offer website where you could purchase their books, depending on if I feel like it. Trying to help the author because they really made an incredible entertaining narrative.
plot critical. It's SCP-055, a self-keeping secret or anti-meme. Information about its physical appearance, nature, behavior, secret or anti-meme. It's SCP-055, a self-keeping secret or anti-meme. Information about its physical appearance, nature, behavior, and origins is self-classifying. It is not indescribable or invisible, as individuals are perfectly capable of entering the container and observing it, taking mental or written notes, making sketches, taking photographs, and even making video recordings. An extensive log of such observations is even on file. However, any information about the object leaks out of a human mind soon after such an observation. Individuals tasked with sketching a copy of a photograph of it are unable to remember what the photograph looks like, as are researchers overseeing these tests. Security personnel who observe it via closed-circuit television cameras emerge after a full shift exhausted and effectively amnesiac about the events of the previous hours. A great deal of scientific data has been recorded from 55, but cannot be studied. At least one attempt has been made to destroy it, or possibly move it from containment at Site 19 to another site, meeting failure for reasons unknown. It's possible that 55 has killed many hundreds of personnel, but the Foundation wouldn't know it. One agent realizes that they do remember that it is an anti-meme, and that doesn't get wiped, so maybe they could try remembering what it isn't. In a test, a personnel member was able to exit and recall...
Oh yeah, if you were wondering why, I gotta get hang of the music. It's a little child's toy from my cousin. Entertaining little thing that he didn't bring with him. I'm going to use it in order to give out emotion and context and feeling, so we can get a kind of, what are you looking at? Pretty. Context and feeling. I will try to be giving tones and degrees to each scene that we feel.
that the object isn't round, but nothing else. Personnel involved with studying it have reported moderate levels of disorientation and psychological trauma associated with cycles of repeated memory and forgetfulness of the object, but no long-term behavioral or health problems were observed. And psych assessments of survey personnel, but no long-term trauma associated with cycles of repeated memory and forgetfulness of the object.
What's happening? Currently, I just have a single itty-bitty problem. Okay, we are going to have to restart the audio. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I want to try to figure out what's happening with the volume within two of these. So I'm already reaching one.
But no long-term behavioral or health problems were observed, and psych assessments of survey personnel showed consistent reports of this distress fading over time. It's recommended that at least one staff member capable of remembering the 65 is posted to each critical site. With that, we can begin the story proper. Chapter 1. We need to talk. We can begin the 55 is posted to each critical site. With that, we can begin the story proper. It's recommended that at least one staff member capable of remembering the existence of 55 is posted to each critical site. With that, we can begin the story proper. Chapter 1. We need to talk about 55. Can I smoke? This time, the receptionist narrows her eyes at Marion and says no, she can't smoke anywhere on Site 200. Just because it's an administration building doesn't mean they don't have lungs or labor law. Marion notices the exasperation on the young woman's face and remarks that she's asked her this before, hasn't she? The receptionist replies that it's been twice in the last quarter hour, so she must really need a smoke. She's genuinely puzzled at the repeated question, and she's doing a bad job of concealing her puzzlement. Marion says that she thinks this is like Memento, and that she thinks Marion has no long-term memory, and if she stays in one place for too long, she forgets why she's there. The receptionist is only just old enough to remember that film, so she hesitantly says that she guesses.
Oh, I can't wait. There are small parts. I can't wait. Okay, spoiler. I was going to just tell you, spoiler warning. The point when we reach to a point where one of the head members of the division talks to 05-3. If I remember correctly, 05-3 lost his memory of the department. And it ends up being a complicated mix of basically the person showing the reason why the department exists and being you forgot it because someone made you forget. And the assistant, who was actually an anti-meme because of clever noticing of there wasn't a desk for her, immediately eliminates it and tells the 05 to remember to take your pills. They're important. Average day for the division.
Marion smiles sympathetically and shakes her head. It's nothing so simple. Minutes pass. She toys obsessively with her lighter. She's turning 50 this year and slowly graying, well on her way out of petite towards little old lady. In her bag, her phone beeps because it's time for a pill, but she tells it to remind her later. There is a slight tremble in her fingers, but that's not age-based infirmity, that's just ordinary nerves. She's nervous because she's here to meet an 05, and 05s are scary. 05s never want to see you for a small thing. It's the end of the world, or nothing. Finally, 40 minutes late, the door to the inner office opens. 4 or 5 high-ranked foundationers spill out, carrying laptops or briefcases. As a group, they head straight past reception and out to cars which are waiting. Marion recognizes a few of the faces. The Site 19 site director, the head recruiter for Western Europe. None of them glance in her direction. Once they're gone, 058's assistant pokes his head around the door.
058?
He's 20-something, improbably youthful, like a teenager stuffed into one of his dad's business shirts. His haircut is barely regulation. In one hand, he holds a tablet computer showing his boss's day planner. It's packed. The man evidently does not sleep. The assistant tells Marion that she can come through now. The office door closes behind them with an unusually heavy mechanical clunk, as if the whole thing is part of a machine built into the office walls. While Marion takes the indicated chair and sets her bag down, the assistant turns and does some confusing additional things to the door, causing it to make several further strange noises. 05s have non-trivial privacy and security requirements. The office is spacious, but somehow contrives to be dark despite two big corners of window and broad daylight outside. The walls are all bookshelves and dark wood paneling, perfectly stylish, but a style from the 90s, a little worn and not yet old enough to be fashionable again. As for the fellow behind the desk, well, an 05 never looks like you imagine. Marion takes a deep breath and asks what the topic is, as she didn't get any agenda or subject. Looking to her right, she notices that the assistant, without saying anything or making any undue noise, has set his tablet down on a table, produced a gun, and aimed it at her head. Marion stops talking. She sits still in her chair for a little while, absorbing the change of pace, letting her heart rate rise to a hummingbird's and then start to flatten again.
Pointing
Licks
the
her lips
gun
and
at
grips the
a
armrest.
member who was just saying, "What were you doing?" And also, if you notice, you know the spoiler, you know a little bit.
Otherwise staying perfectly still, waiting for another prompt. The assistant's face is totally neutral now, like this is just how meetings go. Maybe it is, for people up here. 058 finally speaks, asking her who she is. Marion blinks, and then says, "Oh God." 058 rephrases, reading off her personnel information. Marion Wheeler, 49, with loving husband and 2 boys in tow. Likes camping, hiking, and ornithology. Boring mother with perfect, airtight background in financials, as far back as they can examine. And she has full foundation credentials, which they've never issued, including access to a list of installations and rooms, some of which don't exist, or were torn down decades ago. At least one hasn't been built yet she's got the front door key to it. That's before they get to her SCP access control lists, which he can only term as egregious. So she's a spy, and her objectives are misaligned with theirs. And Clay wanted to cut an MTF loose on her, but he was able to bring him around. He talked him into a face-to-face, as he thought there was a slim chance that if they locked her in a bomb-proof room and asked politely, she'd have the good sense to spare herself the rest. Marion has long since stopped listening, and now calls him a dullard, stating that she's his chief of anti-memetics. Clay just replies that they don't have an anti-memetics division, but Marion insists that they do. 058 says that they have a memetics division, a telecontainment division, Ops A, Ops B, personnel, D personnel, and 24 others, but they don't have an anti-memetics division. Marion asks if they have an irony division, and then asks why they think the anti-memetics division wouldn't show up in the listing. Clay doesn't take his eyes off of her, and says to 058 that this is just a cover story. A good one, but she's had it worked out in advance. The 05 tells him to lose the gun, and he grudgingly does so. Marion relaxes fractionally, and explains that there are SCPs with dangerous memetic properties. There are contagious concepts which require containment just like any physical threat. They get inside your head and ride your mind to reach other minds. 058 agrees, as he could name a score of SCPs fitting this description without even thinking. Marion continues, saying that there are SCPs with anti-memetic properties. There are ideas which cannot be spread. There are entities and phenomena which harvest and consume information, particularly information about themselves. You take a Polaroid photo of one, it'll never develop. You write a description down with a pen on paper and hand it to someone, but what you've written turns out to be hieroglyphs, and nobody can understand them, not even you. You can look directly at one and it won't even be invisible, but you'll still perceive nothing there. Dreams you can't hold on to, and secrets you can never share, and lies and living conspiracies. It's a conceptual subculture of ideas consuming other ideas, and sometimes segments of reality. Sometimes people, which makes them a threat. That's all there is to it, really. Anti-memes are dangerous, and they don't understand them. Therefore, they are part of the problem. Hence, her division. They can do the sideways thinking that's needed to combat something which can literally eat their combat training. 058 stares back at her for a long moment, while Clay fidgets, disliking and distrusting the story. He tells Marion to name an anti-memetic SCP, so she mentions SCP-055, to which he retorts that there is no SCP-055. She argues, but he insists, as SCP numbers aren't assigned sequentially. There are gaps, and that number hasn't been assigned. It's not superstition, as they have enough to be concerned about without arbitrary numerological mysticism. They have SCP-666 and SCP-013, but there's no SCP-001, and there's no 055. 058 then tells him that he should look at this, and he turns his monitor. Clay bends over and reads it from top to bottom. Stunned, he scrolls back and reads it all a second time. 058 notes that the file's dated from 2008. It's got all the right flags and signatures. It's keyed and coded. It's real. Clay asks him if he's seen it before, but he never has, as far as he can remember anyway. On the other hand, if the content is accurate, both of them have probably seen it dozens of times. Clay glares at Marion, remarking that this isn't possible, and Marion nearly spits. She asks how long he's been working here. 058 just asks who wrote the file, how was the interview conducted, who is Bartholomew Hughes, and most importantly, how did Marion retain knowledge of any of this? Marion just says that Bart Hughes wrote the file, but he's dead now, and they don't want to know how. There's a very long pause while both of them react to this. In fact, they pass through a long, discrete sequence of reactions. Indignation at the seeming rudeness, confusion at Marion's incaution in front of sinister superiors, surprise at the magnitude of the claim, pure disbelief, comprehension, and finally horror. 058 carefully asks what would happen if they did know. Marion replies that it would happen to them as well. As for the rest of their questions, they manage that pharmaceutically. The Foundation has amnestics for people who very badly need to forget things, but in anti-memetics, they have a different pill for people who need to remember things that would otherwise be impossible to remember. Nestics, class W, X, Y, and Z. In her bag, her phone beeps again, and with a nod of approval from the 05, she turns her phone off and pulls out a blister pack of pills. They're hexagonal and green. She holds it up and is satisfied to see a flicker of recognition on 058's face. He's beginning to put it back together. She explains that these are Class W nestics, the weakest, suitable for continual use. 2 pills per day, and they can go down to the site pharmacy and ask. The pharmacist will claim that they don't stock any such things, but they're misremembering, so tell them to double check. 058 sighs and says that now he thinks he gets it, and can see why they're having this conversation at all. Marion pops out a second pill and hands it over to him, telling him that this is because he missed a dose. He's supposed to be on these, the same as her and everybody on her staff. It's the only way they can work. He forgot to take a pill, and then he forgot all the information that the pills were helping him retain. He forgot why he was taking them, who gave them to him, and where to get more. He forgot about her and her entire department. And now she has to bring him up to speed. 058 asks if he takes this, he'll remember this whole conversation and they won't have to have it again. Marion just says, hopefully not. And Clay...
You know, it's going to have to happen again, like it always does in the
Clay asks if he should be taking those. 058 just tells him that it's need to know, so maybe when he's in 05 himself. The two swallow their pills, and 058 asks what SCP-055 is. Marion relaxes and says that SCP-055 is nothing. As described in the file, it's a powerful information autosuppressor. As far as experimentation is uncovered, it can only be defined in negative terms. They can only record what it isn't. They know that it isn't safe or Euclid. They know that it isn't round or square or green or silver. They know it isn't stupid, and they know it isn't alone. What they do know is that it's weak, because it's the only anti-memetic agent in their possession which has a physical entry in the files. They have paper records of the thing.
And the thing can be recorded, contained.
And containment procedures. It's not safe, which means it's dangerous, but it's contained. 058 blinks and asks where they have procedures, and Marion just points to her head. He then asks how many other anti-memes are there, and how much more dangerous do they get. Marion replies that she knows of 10, but statistically there's probably at least 5 more that she doesn't know of. This doesn't count the anti-memetic entities freely roaming the halls, not under containment. There are at least 2 in this room with them right now, but she tells them not to look, as it's pointless. 058 does an impressive job of controlling himself, keeping his attention focused on her.
Of course.
Clay doesn't fare so well, and quickly sweeps the whole room, even checking behind his back. He finds nothing, and looks baffled. She mentions that there's an invisible monster which follows her around and likes to eat her memories, but she's learned to manage with it. It's like a demanding pet. She produces tasty memories on purpose so it doesn't eat something important, like her passwords or how to make coffee. Clay asks what the other one is, and with another nod from 05, Marion goes to her bag again. This time, she pulls out a gun and shoots Clay twice in the heart.
Yeah, it was Clay. The second one.
More aghast than in pain, Clay collapses sharply against the bookcase behind him.
How did you know? You tried tricking the head of the anti-memetics division. Oops.
Pulls his head to face Marion and asks how she knew. She stands, aims more carefully, and shoots him again, this time in the head. 058, again, does an impressive job of not reacting, and remarks that that's Clay's gun, that she stole from him. She explains as she unloads it that it's tricky to steal a firearm this heavy from someone without them noticing, but it's a little easier to steal a firearm and then steal their memory of the theft. Like she said, a pet, and some pets are dumb enough that they can be trained. 058 replies that much he guessed, but why? Marion says that it's because he was supposed to be taking Class W Nestics, and you can't skip a dose. She's tried. You can postpone it, but you can't forget unless someone actively prevents you from taking it. There's only one person who could get close enough to him to do that, and that's his assistant. When she asked him how long he'd been working here, he didn't answer. The 05 thought she was being rhetorical, but he doesn't work here.
No.
He's an anti-meme. She asks him since when did he have an assistant, and tells him to look around this office. He's got one desk, and he's got a receptionist outside that screens his calls and schedules his meetings. Where would Clay even sit or fit? She tells him not to blame himself, as he's human, and these things are redaction incarnate. You need to think like a space alien to
Redacting a redaction in existence.
get around them. 058 asks if he's dead, which in any other workplace would be absurd. Marion replies, maybe. She can put his corpse in their research queue, and they'll see what they can see when they open him up. There's a duality here, though. They're like parallel universes sharing the same space. It's conceptual versus concrete, figurative versus physical. It's very unusual for things to cross over, and she doesn't know what Clay was, but he had a human body, which instantly makes him weird, even by their standards. As ever, the search for stalemate continues. She'll let him know.
Essentially, you can never know. That thing probably could be dead, but the world of anti-memetic creatures and our world is like two separate realities. Conceptual and physical. That thing that was Clay had a body, so that's definitely weird. You can poke it in the lab, see maybe what Clay was. But it's
if they get any closer. 058 asks if there's any side effects of these pills, to which she just says nausea, dramatically increased risk of pancreatic cancer, and very bad dreams.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform made for anyone with an idea.
Chapter 2, Introductory Antimemetics. Junior researcher Kim's been working for the Foundation for all of 4 hours, and he feels pulverized, as if an anvil were dropped on his head in that first introductory lecture. It's lunchtime, and he's found a corner so far back in the cafeteria that nobody bothers him, where he can chew and swallow non-anomalous food, drink apocalyptically strong coffee, and digest the hard lessons of the morning. On his Foundation-provided phone, he pages fretfully through the few SCP files for which he has clearance. Most of them have to be jokes. That's how they read. Like very bad, dark, frightening jokes. Kim's one of 11 junior researchers in the new intake, and the other 10 are sitting in a separate group at a separate table, chatting animatedly to one another. There are some instructors here and there, munching sandwiches. Other than them, the cafeteria, large enough to seat 200 people or more, is deserted. To Kim, that seems odd. Site 41 is
He's starting to realize.
large. 3 skulking buildings with significant basement space, buried casually in the forest of central Colorado. Where is everybody? A man in a gray suit walks into the area, makes eye contact with Kim, and strides purposefully over. The man's suit is sharp enough to cut. He wears a tie pin and a platinum wristwatch as big as a brick. He looks badly misplaced. Site 41 is a working site. There's training, education, research, development, analysis, and even the containment of a very few safe SCPs going on here. Executives shouldn't ever be here. So what is he? A lost exec trying to find the helipad? Or a researcher or instructor dressing for the job he wants, not the job he has? He holds a hand out and remarks that it's a hell of a first day, introducing himself as Alistair Gray. Kim introduces himself as Paul Kim, and Gray asks about his accent and where he's from. Kim blinks and says he's from New York, before asking if he's the site director. Gray just replies that he seems on edge, and Kim says that that figures, doesn't it? He must know how that intro goes. It's like an atom bomb to the ego. He just had almost everything he knows overturned, and it turns out that he's spent his entire adult life being protected from dangerous knowledge, as if the whole outside world is a ball pit for under 7s. Stepping out of that has been humiliating to start with. He blinks again and asks Gray what he does here, as he didn't answer his question. Gray just responds that he didn't answer his. Kim begins to reply that of course he did, but then stops, his train of thought running off the end of the track into air. It's on the tip of his tongue, the answer to Gray's question, but he can't get the words out. That's weird, he remarks, shaking his head. He also notices at this point that Gray isn't wearing his badge. This could be an honest mistake, albeit an extremely serious one, but surely executives don't get to the executive level without being scrupulously correct in everything they do. Kim asks him again who he is, but Gray just replies that Kim's life story was fascinating. He spoke 4 languages, but only 1 now, and soon 0. Huge in intellect to specialize. His education was a fusion of biochemistry and comparative literature. He felt as if he'd die if he couldn't find more foreign thoughts to cram into his head. He's been all over the world, hungry, and every country he's ever been to was like landing on another planet. He toys with anthropology, but there's too much world for one human race to ever understand, let alone one human. There's too much human race. They should pare it down. Kim nods and asks him to excuse him for a second. He then gets up and hurries to another table, to the instructor whom he met earlier that day. When he gets close to her, he feels a kind of staticky sensation building up. He tries to shake her shoulder and succeeds in moving it a little, but it's like reaching through tar. He shouts that there's a problem, an intruder, and it might be an SCP. She doesn't react. He tries the gaggle of fellow newcomers, but they keep chattering and hypothesizing, oblivious to him shouting and clapping in their ears. He looks back. Gray has stood up and started moving towards him, still with that confident smile. And there's definitely something wrong with him now, because he's visible through the tables, like an augmented reality hollow projection jammed inside Kim's eyeball. Kim realizes with a stab of fear that he can even see Gray when he blinks. His eyelids close, but Gray is still there, an apparition in what for all of Kim's life has been totally personal, private darkness. The only way he can avoid seeing Gray is to turn away, and even then he feels a radioactive prickling in the back of his eyeballs. Kim tries to phone one of the newbies, and the phone in their pocket rings, but other than that, nothing happens. Nobody reacts. He remarks that that doesn't make sense. Gray asks him if he remembers his father, but Kim edges away and says that he never knew his father. His mother raised him. Gray's white smile is a fixture. He says that these people loved Kim's perspective. They were going to put him to work on anomalous anti-memes, but they don't remember he exists. He doesn't exist. Kim says, mainly to himself, that there aren't any dangerous SCPs on this site, so either Gray is not dangerous or nobody knows he exists. If nobody knows he exists, then that means he's either brand new or he trails off and asks what an anti-meme is. Gray just says hell of a first day again, and that Kim seems on edge. Kim bolts for the exit, turns a corner and runs 10 or 11 paces down the corridor to where there's an elevator. He stabs the down button and waits. The elevator door is highly polished, reflective. Kim catches sight of a face in the mirrored surface and nearly falls over with shock because it's a face he has never seen before, and it's apparently his own. Gray comes around the corner, still only strolling, just as the elevator cracks open. Kim dives in and punches the lowest floor, basement, at level 8.
Oh,
It's instinctive, although he could rationalize the decision in retrospect. He can't just get in his car and drive, as it's better if Gray stays on site than if he's set loose in rational reality. To do that, it's better if Kim retreats to the lowest, darkest corner of the site to which he has access, and then waits for Gray, and locks all the doors behind them, and waits to die. The elevator starts descending, and the apparition of Gray, visible through doors and floors, disappears upwards, shrinking with distance and perspective, but still smiling broadly down at Kim. He paces in the elevator. He doesn't remember what his face looks like. It said it had eaten all his secondary languages, but he doesn't remember learning anything other than English, so it's eating his memories. It's consuming information, and he can't contact anybody directly, which means he's on his own. He's not trained for this. He hammers his head once against the elevator wall and stares at his shoes. But he doesn't know that. What if he's been trained, but he doesn't remember his training anymore? What if he's been working here for years and he only thinks this is his first day? What if he's met this thing before? What if everybody on the site has met it multiple times and nobody remembers? Is this what an anti-meme is? Kim remembers the near-empty cafeteria and miles to totally unoccupied corridors and vacant offices and lab space. Maybe it's not just eating his memories. Maybe it eats people whole, removes them completely from history. Maybe it's been haunting this site for years, and that's why the site's so empty, because it's nearly finished exterminating them all. He needs to get help. He needs to warn somebody, but he can't talk to people. He can't phone them. He should write an SCP, but surely someone's already thought of that. He pulls his phone out and pulls out the listing. Nearly 10,000 SCP entries, with 100 of them tagged anti-memetics alone. He clears his mind and thinks. Gray, with an E. Grey, 4739. He pulls up SCP-4739. Editor's note. This tale was written before an actual SCP-4739 was written, so the two don't line up, but perhaps that's somewhat expected given the circumstances. 4739 is a Keter class, and the containment procedures state that the writer is disregarding the format, because time is a factor. If you're reading this, you've already been isolated from the Foundation at large. Attempts to signal for help are futile. You are now inside 4739's gullet, after ingestion and prior to digestion. You need to get to lab S041B08053 as soon as possible, and continue the research until you find a way to stop or kill Gray, before it kills you. Don't read the rest until you're in the elevator. The elevator doors open at basement level 8, and Alistair Gray is waiting, still smiling disarmingly. He steps forward. Desperate, Kim hurls his phone overarm at the creature's forehead. It's a solid chunk of metal, and it's a dead hit. Gray reels backwards and cracks his skull against the wall. By the time he recovers, Kim is out of sight, tearing away down the left corridor, just echoing, fading footsteps on concrete. 2 45-degree turns, and room 53 is in sight, the door at the farthest end. It looks like a submarine bulkhead. He spots the keypad and tries 4739. It works, and the bulkhead mechanism takes agonizing seconds to open up. He hears Gray calling down the corridor, asking if he remembers his mother. Kim hisses under his breath that he never knew his parents. He was an orphan. For a split second, he wonders what Gray might really mean by that, but he doesn't have time to dwell on it. The bulkhead opens, and Kim slides in and pulls it closed behind him, locking the mechanism up again, as if that'll buy him even 1 second. The lab inside is sizable, windowless, of course, and stacked to the ceiling with a jumble of equipment which Kim hardly recognizes. There are pieces of thick, shattered glass underfoot, and in the corner, a locked computer terminal. Kim unlocks it, and there's the same entry waiting for him. SCP-4739 is a powerful, slow-acting anti-memetic kill agent, taking the appearance of a male, Caucasian business executive calling itself Alistair Gray. It is attracted to dense clusters of organically stored information. Essentially, extremely knowledgeable, complicated, interesting people. It isolates its victim from the outside world by enveloping them in an anti-memetic field, which makes it impossible for the victim or anything done by the victim to be perceived or remembered. It then consumes the victim's memories and knowledge until they become vegetative and die. This process takes between 15 minutes and 2 hours, and is described as being like Alzheimer's disease in fast forward. It is not believed to be sentient, although it imitates the behavior of a sentient being to the extent that it can appear sentient to the inattentive. Its victims are able to move and act freely, since it is impossible to escape once caught or to signal for help. Communications such as written notes, graffiti, and electronic mail do get sent and persist in reality, but its effect spreads with each message, making it impossible for an external observer to perceive the message until such time as 4739 catches them too. The entry, which you are currently reading, is created and maintained by victims of 4739, because it is only visible to victims of 4739. If you are reading this entry, it has caught you. You are now isolated from the Foundation at large, and constitute an effective Foundation of 1. You have between 15 minutes and 2 hours to reach Site 41, Basement Level 8, Laboratory 053, familiarize yourself with the existing research, and continue this research until you find a way to contain or decommission 4739, or more likely, die. If your field of expertise is not related to anti-memetic containment, they sincerely apologize and advise you to start learning fast. 4739 has consumed 79 Foundation researchers since they started counting on August 3rd, 2013. If you are reading this entry for the first time, please add a mark. They estimate at least 50% of victims never make it as far as this database entry, so the true victim count is more than twice this figure. Kim screams at the terminal, asking how he kills it. He scrolls and scrolls through the research, which is chaotic and haphazardly arranged, because nobody has found the spare seconds to sort it out. There are dozens of separate lines of research, contributed in patchwork by a succession of victims, all ending with variations on the same final line. I'm going to try X. If you're reading this, X didn't work, and I'm dead, which means approach X is a dead end, and you have to think of something else. Nobody has succeeded in physically engaging with Gray. Nobody can stall it, evade it, slow it down, reason with it, or redirect it to some other target. People have tried poisoning their memories with indigestible ideas, drip-feeding their memories to Gray to slow him down, replacing their memories faster than Gray can eat them, and force-feeding him too many memories at once to overfeed him and blow him up. They've tried committing suicide by Class A amnestic overdose. None of it worked. More than 100 people, most of them apparently possessing doctorates, have slid into the maw of this thing, fought briefly, and with a greater or lesser degree of dignity, died. There are no remaining untried threads. Kim concludes that he's screwed. He glances up. Gray's not in the room yet, but Kim can see him strolling down the last stretch of corridor. He's a totally intangible being. Physical obstructions are irrelevant to him. He can't be hurt. Kim clutches the pocket where he used to keep his phone. He scrolls again, finding 3 or 4 sad, desperate wretches who died confronting Gray physically. Combat knife and Glock, baseball bat, which is still in the room, rolled under a table. One man, an elderly botanist far out of his depth, said he was just going to try whatever he could find that was heaviest. That explains the shattered CRT television and the light layer of thick glass on the floor near the bulkhead. There's even CCTV footage of the botanist's attempt. He accomplishes literally nothing. Gray is a holographic ghost, and the CRT drops right through him, imploding when it hits the floor at Gray's feet. The botanist spends the rest of the video's running time huddled in a corner, gradually losing his mind, while Gray watches placidly. The difference being, Kim realizes, a phone is a solid brick full of information. Before him, nobody tried using information as a missile. He searches for the experiments, several of them, scattered, where the victim tried...
I didn't want to say this to spoil it, but finally, someone using information. Gray is a information eater, a consumer information, which means information is the only environment. Everything has information, but what we're particularly finding is data, information that is consumable by him, because what he feeds on is what he can physically touch. And thus, he needs to kill him through physical information holes, books.
To divert Gray to a different data source. The general idea seemed to be to overload Gray by pointing him at something containing too much information. the internet, or the terabit feed from a live particle accelerator experiment, or a stack of hard drives containing the first few quadrillion binary digits of pi. But nobody could figure out a way to distract Gray's attention. He would ignore prominently placed screens full of data. Data beamed at him electromagnetically had no effect. And nobody could figure out a way to tunnel the information in through the victim's mind as extra memories. It was written off as impossible, closed as a line of investigation. The hard drives, Kim finds, are right there on the workbench next to the computer. It's a half-rack unit, a cuboidal block of metalwork as big and heavy as a bowling ball. One of the most ineffective conceivable melee weapons. Kim snatches up the 3 longest pieces of Ethernet cables he can find and starts plaiting them into a chain. Then he remembers who he is, where he is, and what his responsibilities are. He goes to the computer, adds himself to the victim tally, and writes up exactly what it is he's about to try. Because he might not be the last one, and the world needs to know that this didn't work. Gray comes through the lab bulkhead to find most of the equipment in the room toppled onto the floor, to create room for the black and silver drive array that Paul Kim is whirling around his head on a 2-meter chain made of plated network cable. It makes a low thrumming sound as it whirls. Gray is not intelligent enough to stop moving forwards, and catches the array directly in the side of his head, rack mount point first, like a morning star. Gray absorbs a few trillion digits of the impact, but it isn't enough. There's a green snap of light and a noise like a subway train short-circuiting, and Gray's a pile in the corner, his head caved in and the drive array partially demolished in pieces around him. Kim decides that history can fill in whatever quip it likes best. Editor's note: my vote is for that sure took a bite out of him. Editor's that caved in and the drive array partially demolished in pieces around him. Kim decides that history can fill in whatever quip it likes best. Editor's note: my vote is for that sure took a bite out of him. In the aftermath, Marion tells him that it was chewing its way up the anti-memetics division hierarchy. It was only a matter of time until it bit down on somebody dangerous. She congratulates him on demonstrating a basic level of competence when it counted. Does
Chewing up to the lowest to the highest until it met someone who was too high in the division to be defeated.
of others couldn't. Kim still feels rattled, but the shock is dissipating faster than he'd expected. Marion Wheeler, it turns out, is the anti-memetics division chief. She's Kim's new boss. Kim says that he wants to say it was dumb luck. He wants to say that he just threw his phone. It was instinct. It was muscle memory. It was his first day, and he got lucky as hell. He wants to say those things, but he's sitting here and turning those statements over, and none of them would be true. Marion waits expectantly and says nothing. She's not his new boss. She's just his boss. This isn't his first day at all. He's been working here for over a decade. He thinks he's been a professional anti-memetics researcher since at least the mid-2000s. It's just that the first thing Gray ate was his memories of everything past the first day. Marion replies that she sees very little luck in what happened today. Instinct and muscle memory are just deep forms of training. Like she said, a basic level of competency. An ability to piece your own life and all of your past knowledge back together faster than nearly anybody else. This is what they try to drill into them, and sometimes, thankfully, it takes. Kim continues, saying that this isn't even the first time they've had this conversation. There have been other...
There will be many times. There was many times before, and there will be many times next.
Other incidents with other SCPs with amnestic powers. She's sat there and watched him pull himself back together before. Marion admits that it hasn't gotten old, with something which might be approaching a smirk. He asks her how long it usually takes for him to recover, to which she says a few months, but if he wants the truth, people in this division are as competent on day one as they'll ever be. You come to the job firing on all cylinders, or not at all. The rest is just fine-tuning and chemistry. Kim replies that what she's actually saying is she doesn't care about his mental state, and she needs him back at work now. Marion nods, and says that she needs an updated SCP entry to begin with. He needs to nail down the model for Gray's predatory pattern and exactly how he defeated it. She wants him to work out what it did with the bodies, incinerated, disintegrated, or just left them lying around the site in rotting, perceptually cloaked heaps. And she needs countermeasures for when it comes back. Kim asks about it not being dead, but then says that he thinks he knows this one. It's coming back to him.
Ideas don't die. It's the fundamental of what the anti-memetics division is. You can kill anti-memetics how hard you want, but you're not an idea. You did someone like Demon K demons in Warhammer. You banished it back to its realm.
Ideas don't die.
You knocked over the info hazard, the anti-memetic anomaly until it left.
This story is only just beginning, but we have the groundwork. There are anomalies in the world that can hide from practically all perception, eating away at people, literally or metaphysically, until no one remembers them either. In a world filled with dangerous anomalies, the ones that go unnoticed are perhaps the most threatening, which is what makes the Anti-Memetics Division so important. We'll find out more in part 2. There is no Anti-Memetics Division.
Boom! Okay, this is the end of the video. This will be part 1. And tonight, this will be a break because I got to leave for the bathroom. But in about 15 minutes, we will have part 2. In about 15-20 minutes. Part 2 will be
What did the brim caps do to Tree Free, dog? We need to find that out. I might have to read his manga at this point. That was sweet. How kind of He's not a sword or nothing. What's he about to do? Your face is sealed. The whole city is going to be destroyed in the next 2 fucking weeks. Your face just won, which means they made it to the NBA finals. Which was the first because whether they get
honest drugs because they weren't sent here to follow. They were sent to change everything. You've always felt
is the skill gap between a great witch and a good witch. Like take Keeper, for example. He pulled off that feat that gets the dragon off of pure skill alone. You gotta think about it. He pulled up, saved his little subordinates, assessed the situation, drew a skill without looking at the shit, and was so bad and so natural. He pulled off something magnificent. Do you know how much study and practice that man has probably done to get to that level? You can't just will something like that. Should we even saw a guy trying to do it without looking in the most recent episode? She got it off, but like it took her some time. Can you forget that in less than half a millisecond? I don't know if I would have survived this. One, I can't let shit. Tons. Two, to memorize those things without looking and putting like a press on it. Three, damn near impossible. The same guy was first. Yes, sir. When they were talking about that, the same guy was regulation. Last night, the elections proved that the Republican Party is a cult. The Republican voter base is a cult, and there is nothing that we can do about this. They are too far gone and are going to support Trump. And I'm saying this because last night, Thomas Massie literally lost because Trump told these Republican voters in Kentucky to vote against him and vote for his own endorsed primary challenger. And these Republican voters, they just lined up without even thinking about this and just fucking did it. They literally just do whatever Trump tells them to do. And by the way, Thomas Massie, like, he got the release of the Epstein files, which is something that Trump himself even cares about. So these Republican voters voted against their own self-interest just to impeach Trump. Like, it's a cult, and it's literally a cult, and there's nothing that we can do about this. And this is also exactly why Democrats need to stop campaigning on how flaky Republicans on their own policy stances and try to win over these Republican voters. This Republican swing voter is non-existent. It is a myth, and it doesn't exist. They will just do whatever Trump tells them to do. Democrats need to focus on getting their own voter base to go to the polls by running on progressive working class policies and also winning So 70% of Americans now oppose AI data centers being built near their homes. Now, this is all according to a recent Gallup poll that just released. And, at first it sounds good, right? Like, oh, that's 70% of people that oppose AI data centers. That's a good one. But so 30% of people actually support an AI data center being built near their house.
Okay, if you were part of part 2, we had a bit of an adventure. But we're going to be leaving the couch pretty, and we're going to be moving into the kitchen. Why? Because this late. One second, I gotta blow my nose. Because this is late night. So we must do dishes, which is the last thing I had to do. But we will be still reacting to this video, part 2 of the There Is No Anti-Memetics Division. And it's still some of the... yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll see. Yeah,
Part 2. In the first part of the story, we were introduced to Marion Wheeler, head of the Anti-Memetics Division at the Foundation, a division that is routinely forgotten about by even the O5s due to the nature of their work, researching and containing anomalies that actively force themselves out of people's memory. Most anomalies don't really want to be contained, but these resist containment in a way that makes most people unaware that they even exist, and they only get worse from here. Let's take a look. Chapter 3. Unforgettable. That's what you are. Lynn Marness is more than 90 years old and hasn't stood at his full height in 10. He was a tower of a man in his prime, 2 meters tall and built like a boxer. Nearly nobody he ever met was able to look him straight in the eye, at least not and tell him no. Illness has gradually eaten away at that over the years. He feels as if he lives at the bottom of a deep bath, everybody he ever meets looking down at him from slippery, unscalable walls, none of them able to reach down to help him. He spent his final months crumpled up in bed like a dying spider, changing to a corpse's color ahead of time. It might have been bearable if he'd lost his mind, but he remembers what he used to be, a leader, a powerhouse. He used to be able to alter the course of terrible events for the better, to get justice. He used to protect people. A voice tells him that it's finished and that he can wake up now. But there's a warm wind through his thin, colorless hair, and there's direct sunlight coming down on him now, and the heat is filling him up like a tonic.
The old Foundation director, or old Foundation personnel of the previous Anti-Memetics Division. Before the incident. Well, he'll explain the incident.
He's outside. It's been too long since he was last outside. When he opens his eyes, he sees his lake, the one in the northwest, which he used to have all to himself every summer. He's on a boat, his boat, lying on a blanket laid on the deck. A few kilometers away behind them is the little lake house, empty. It's perfect. He didn't know he had the strength left to safely leave the hospital, let alone travel this far. But if he'd put his mind to it and selected a final moment, this might have been it. The voice asks if he remembers her, and Marness looks, with eyes which are strengthening. The woman speaking is seated on the deck beside him, attentive. She has a large plastic box full of medical supplies open in front of her, and a light suit jacket laid on the deck beside it, and she has her sleeves rolled up so she can work. As he watches, she carefully disposes of a needle. A dim memory surfaces and starts taking shape. The woman is twice as old now as when he knew her last, and visibly twice as confident. It would be difficult to forget her. He taught her everything he could remember at the time. He remembers her as a field agent. He remembers sending her through hell a fistful of times. Marion. The woman softly explains to him that he died, surrounded by grieving family. They loved him very much, and they cried over him. The funeral for the fake is in a few days, but unfortunately, he won't be able to see it himself. He's dead now, and this is what comes next. Marness calls her Marion Hutchinson, and
He died, and well, now he's basically dead. It's time to do one last thing for the foundation. Remember, he hates the fact that he has to remember, but he needs to remember.
he feels gold spreading through his bones. Miracle juice.
For the information.
It's Wheeler now, but she doesn't correct him.
Remember.
She says that when he retired from the Foundation, they did what they do to all of them who retire, what all of them agree to when they sign up. They gave him some medicine, which made him forget. As he stepped out of the door for the last time, all the work he did for them, great work, which saved lives, evaporated away, and his cover story sealed over those years became reality. That's why he spent his whole retirement believing that he was a former section chief at the FBI. It's what he wanted, it's what they wanted, and it's what he agreed to. But he alone agreed to something else as well, and he must be starting to remember now what that was. She's injected him with a serum, which throws the human aging process into hard reverse, and it affects everything. Organs, tissues, memories. He'll be coming up on it soon, and she asks if he remembers. He croaks,
Benjamin Button.
yes, dizzy. She continues, saying that he signed over his final 12 hours to them. He asked for a full and happy and well-deserved retirement, but now, for the last day, he works for them again, because of one particular job. She has it in writing here, and asks if he recognizes his signature and hers. He does. She asks if he remembers who he is, and he says Dr. Lynn Patrick Marness of the Foundation, Anti-Memetics Division founder. She smiles with relief, as it's good to see him again. She explains that they need some memories from him, memories which nobody else in the world has access to, and which are buried so deeply that they can't extract them without killing him. This afternoon, that's what they're going to do. They're going to extract those memories, and once they're done, he'll be dead. Marness has already...
Final thing to say for me while I silently do my work. They're going to find out about the incident, about how the anti-memetics department is much older. Countless different memetics departments used to exist. Countless different histories for a long, long time. Just to say, all of those memetics departments died. The incident is going to be revealed, and the truth is going to be exposed. Well, part of it. One thing about this series, the truth is very deadly to have. Let's see if she can handle it.
They've begun to regress to the time when he himself set this wheel in motion. He remembers very clearly discovering the mystery in his own head, the blank spots which he couldn't explain, and couldn't safely access with any kind of chemical or physical technique. He remembers deferring the mystery until now. Marion then asks him what happened in 1976. Marness sits up, his skin beginning to clear and his breathing is improving. He feels as if his brain is cleaved in two by a wormhole, such that his eyes are focusing on different time periods. In his right eye, he sees the lake and the boat he's dying on. In his left, he sees a collage of electrifyingly familiar past faces and places. Bart Hughes, with his grin and thick glasses and baby face, looking like some kid dressed up as a Foundation researcher. The original Site 48 crew. Great techs, but a hopeless excuse for a softball team. Young Marion, with steel-strong nerves and a mind like a laser. Suits and lab coats and MTF operatives. And everywhere paperwork and floods of serial numbers. He starts to speak. 1976 was the year he founded the division. He brainstormed the whole thing in one legendary week, hammering out the science and then distilling the first chemical nestic with the help of a hand-picked trio of assistants, the first anti-memetics researchers. No anti-memetic SCPs had ever been observed up to that point. The entire operation was a shot in the dark. And yet the team immediately struck gold. Passive black holes of information, active predatory infovores, unrememberable worms which covered the human skin like dust mites, contagious bad news, self-sealing secrets, living murders, Chinatowns. Marion wonders if there might be something more serious awry with Marness's head. His version of events is hopelessly romantic. In Marion's experience, nobody looks back on Foundation work fondly. Marness says that it was all too fast. Special containment procedures take time to develop, much more time than he took. The Foundation as a whole acquires about a dozen new SCPs annually, and he found that many in 1 year, essentially single-handedly. It was too easy, as if he knew it all already, and was just catching up. And then one day, he realized that he couldn't remember his life before anti-memetics. He knew he'd been a Foundation operative for decades prior. That was where he got the authority to start his own division. But there was nothing else there. It was a wall in his mind, which even Nestix couldn't get him past. He went to the paper archives and looked at his own personnel file. Marness trails off, not because he's forgotten what to say next. It's deliberate. The trailing off is exactly what happened. He woke up back at his desk half a working day later, remembering nothing. He went through the loop a dozen times before someone realized what was happening and broke him out of it. Marion knows all of this. The file still exists, and the anti-memetic effect still clouds the back half of it. All of this would be over in a second if any of that back half could be read. Marness goes on, saying that when he assembled the evidence, what he found was a hole, like a jigsaw with only the edges and corners. So he did the only thing he could do. He looked at the shape of the hole, and together with Bart Hughes and others, he formed a theory. This was not the first anti-memetics division. Before 1976, there was another one. He was part of that division, and he possibly led it. Certainly, he is the only known survivor of it. Something happened to that team. Some anti-memetic force chewed up and swallowed the idea of the anti-memetics division itself. He was let off lightly. He lived. The rest of those people, whoever they were, however many of them there were, are missing without trace. Marion nods and says that this much they already know. She was there when he wrote the note. The question is known, but it's the answer that they can't get to without killing him. It's the answer that they've waited all these years to get at. She's here to ask him, what happened? Marness covers his right eye and grimaces, trying. He fails. It's not there. She hasn't sent him back far enough. There's still that wall there in his head. He remembers why the question exists, but he doesn't remember the answer. He needs more. Marion swabs his arm and gives him another 10 years. Editor's note. We're told in a footnote that Class X Nestics were a failed eternal youth serum, rejuvenating both mind and body up to a triple-digit number of years, but the effects are temporary, wearing off in a matter of hours. Furthermore, as the drug wears off, the suppressed time reasserts itself all at once, causing a harmful whiplash effect on the subject's physiology. Rejuvenation up to 30 days is safe, but past that it becomes dangerous, and anything more than 16 to 18 months is always fatal. Its main use, therefore, has become its restorative effect on human memory, allowing Foundation operatives to accurately recall incidents involving memory-corrupting entities. This is why Marness is going to die today. Marness seems like another man once the second X dose takes effect. Wrinkles are sliding back up into his face. Muscle mass is returning to his limbs. But it takes Marion a second to realize the real reason why. She's just boosted him back across the field desk agent transition. Marness has regressed a little way past senior management, the realm where most problems were solved by saying the correct words, and into a time where he survived through physical fitness, situational alertness, and hands-on experience. Marness gets to his feet for the first time in years. He scans his surroundings, examining the placid golden lake and the sky and the boat itself. He doesn't sit down again. He smooths down his hospital gown, wishing he had a sweater and, separately, some fishing gear. He brushes a hand through new, old hair. His sideburns are back. He says that they weren't Foundation at first. The first anti-memetics division was a U.S. Army project. It ran parallel with Manhattan during World War II. They called themselves the Unthinkables. It began as an experiment in advanced propaganda. The objective was to cut through the physical conflict and find a way to rupture the ideological machine, to obliterate the idea of Nazism. After 2 years, enough theory had been developed that the task had been reduced to an engineering problem. Another 2 years, and the engineering problem had been reduced as well, and what they had built was a very special kind of bomb. Unfortunately, they didn't understand what they'd built. Back then, they didn't have the nestics or the shielding that they could use to protect themselves. They didn't understand how far ahead you need to think when you're working with this kind of technology. They got looped. It was textbook. They built the unthinkable bomb and test detonated it, and it worked perfectly. The bomb destroyed itself and erased its own successful detonation and flattened all the knowledge which had gone together to build it. They forgot that they had ever built the bomb at all and started over. To their credit, they realized pretty quickly what must have happened. There was a 4-year gap in their progress now, and there was no other way to explain it. But by the time they put the pieces together the second time, the war was almost over. The Nazis had been defeated by conventional means, and the Japanese had been broken by the first atomic bombings. So they completed the second anti-memetic bomb, and after that, they sat on it. Marion is silent for a long moment, before doubtfully saying that the U.S. Army was secretly developing anti-memetic weaponry as early as the 1940s. Marness replies that they sure were, with more than a hint of pride. Marion says that, of course, there's no one in the whole world who could back this up. Marness agrees, flashing a smile he hasn't flashed in decades. She only has his word for it. This is why she resurrected him, for the sake of one more good war story. Marion replies that she resurrected him because she wants a very specific question answered, although she can see in a way that he's already answered it. The old anti-memetics division bombed themselves, somehow. From context, she assumes that they knew what they were doing that time. She assumes it was not an accident. Marness says that it was not. After the war, the second bomb collected dust for years. They began sketching improved designs for a third bomb, but around that time, oversight was starting to flicker out. They completed their research and production objectives and were given no further objectives. Funding became shaky, and they couldn't figure out why. It wasn't entirely clear that the project overseers knew what they were doing, or even that they remembered they existed. It was a side effect from the research, of course, one they had no way of managing at the time. In 1951, a cult movement began in Ojai, California. It was wrong. Everything about it was just wrong. In a matter of days, it was a national phenomenon and still growing. It was all over the news. To spread that far in months would have been credible, but days was simply impossible. The team could see that the philosophy behind the cult was unnaturally contagious. It was the opposite of unthinkable. It was unforgettable. They knew that this was what their bomb was designed for. They prompted the overseers for direction, but there were no orders. At the time that the outbreak began, they were a U.S. Army laboratory, through and through. 8 days into the crisis, the Foundation acquired them. All the classified research, all the material resources, and all the compliant top staff, including him. Anybody who wouldn't comply was mind-wiped and sent back to the Army. 20 hours after the acquisition, they deployed the second bomb, and the cult was gone. Nobody remembered it. Nobody remembered being part of it. 0 loss of life. A completely clean detonation. Editor's note. This is referring to the fifthis and SCP-1425, star signals, which would again resurge in 2005 in Ojai, California.
Yeah, I mean, like, of course it was the fifthest. The fifthest.
Seems that the anti-memetic bomb didn't quite snuff all that out. After that is when everything really kicked off. Once they started working for the Foundation, the pace of research ramped up. Every new technological advancement uncovered new hidden SCPs. He passed the Foundation field exams and went out catching ghosts. His life turned into the Twilight Zone. He then blinks hard, covers one of his eyes, then the other. He remembers all these different people now, and it feels like his memory is in stereo. Almost every anti-memetic SCP they caught before the wipe in 76, they caught again soon after the wipe. That means he remembers 2 acquisition logs for each one. He remembers 2 anti-memetics teams, and he doesn't remember who belongs on which side of the wall. He asks if she remembers Goldie Yarrow, the neurologist, or Dr. Ojibiru, or Julie Still. She just tells him that this is important, and asks if he's at the right place in his own timeline to remember what happened yet. Marness focuses, and he discovers that he is. Something changes in his eyes as he stops reminiscing. He speaks more slowly now, his voice dropping almost to a whisper. There is an SCP which her division has never seen, he said. The SCP which his division couldn't contain. The escapee. This is what she wanted, isn't it? She replies yes. This is the data she's killing him for. She leaves a gap where, if she felt there was anything to apologize for, she would apologize. Marness locks eyes with her. It was eating his division alive. It came at them so hard and so fast that the only way they could stop it was to self-destruct, but they had no on-site nuke. And in retrospect, it is obvious to him now that this was because the SCP had consumed their site nuke first of all. If you know it exists, it knows you exist. The more you know about it, the more it knows about you. If you can see it, it can see you, and you can see it. She's been looking right at it all afternoon. Marion is suddenly acutely aware of her surroundings. There are only 2 of them on the boat. The boat is anchored more than a kilometer from any of the lake shores. She hasn't brought any backup with her. There's a radioactive prickling in her brain. Red flag. Why didn't she bring any backup with her? That doesn't make any sense. There should be a team at the lake house. There should be an MTF operative and a medic here on the boat with her, and a second boat at minimum. Is she all alone out here? Why did she do that? She pulls her gun, but she doesn't aim it at Marness yet. She asks him where it is, and if it's in him. Marness's voice is becoming urgent, and he covers both of his eyes again. He says that destroying all knowledge of it was the only way to destroy it, and restoring his memories was a foolproof way to bring it back. It's in his eye, she thinks. Most likely his left eye. Marion backs up to the other side of the boat, draws a bead on the center of Marness's head, and asks if he's still in there. Marness hisses that there's a way to fix this, and drops to his knees. He keeps his eyes screwed up and gropes his way forward blindly, on his hands and knees. She tells him that he needs to tell her what this thing is, but he replies that that's the opposite of what they need to do.
It's the most powerful, dangerous anti-magnetic anomaly you ever could face. Destroyed centuries worth of anti-magnetics. Probably resetting a human civilization a time or two. A couple of times. A couple of advanced human civilizations. It's the most ultimate anomaly in existence.
She needs to set another bomb off. She begins to say that they don't have that bomb, as they lost that technology, but he cuts her off to say that they've always had it. There's an engineering lab in Site 41, an underground complex the size of a football field, in pristine condition and totally disused. That's where their bomb's installed. Marion argues that that just sets them back to square one. If she sets the bomb off, how do they contain this thing? Marness shouts that they won't, ever. They can't. The whole division is looped. They start the division, they run headlong into this thing, and either it eats them or they wipe themselves out in self-preservation. The idea of anti-memes is as old as forgetfulness itself. Humans have been looping through this problem over and over again since long before the 40s, maybe for centuries. His blindly probing fingers find the...
To expose the truth, I'll say it for centuries, if not millennia, their civilization has been facing this anomaly. It's the most powerful anti-magnetic anomaly in existence. Likely most anomalies, anti-magnetic anomalies, are part of it. And once it gets big enough, you can see the outline. So it can see you. It's, who knows how long it existed. Likely from centuries, not millennia. It has erased human civilization and countless different departments of anomalies and securities. The more you know about it, the more power it has. The more power to repair and stress. They've been only delaying the progress in the war to destroy the world itself. by erasing the memory of it. They have been in a war for the entire lives, and likely for the last 1,000 years. Erasing all their memories and not even fighting.
Medical box, but it's too late. A waving black pedipalp coated in dark hairs forces its way out through Marnessa's left eye, and he screams. Still on his knees, he grasps it with both hands and tries to break it, but it's solid, as if it has bones inside it. Marion shouts at him, asking what the escapee is, as that can't be the whole story. She asks where it's from, what it wants. Can it reason? Can it speak? Marness just utters the word help before a second spider leg, significantly longer and spindlier, slides out through his trachea, ruining his throat and voice box and producing a gout of blood. He gurgles as a third leg shoots from his abdomen like a spear. Marion shoots him in the head, and he falls forward, limp, before rising back up, lifted by the 3 spider appendages as if he is a puppet being controlled by something gigantic and invisible. His arms raise as if suspended by wires. Marion squints and fires 4 more shots over Marness's head at the likely body mass of the invisible puppeteer, and fires the rest of her clip almost directly into the sky. The whole boat vibrates along with the surface of the lake, as if responding to infrasound or a localized earthquake. Then the boat shudders violently and starts to lift out of the water, raised by more unseen appendages. Marion holsters her gun and goes for the medical box herself, pulling it away from Marness's floating feet. There's a compartment with Class B amnestic, the fast-acting stuff, in serum form. She does a hurried burst of mental arithmetic, measures out the correct dosage in a syringe, and, hands shaking, plunges it into a wrist vein. The boat is still rising. Whatever the monster is, it's colossally tall, or maybe it flies. She is, of course, already dosed up to the eyeballs with nestic drugs. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to perceive any of this. Foundation medical literature warns in the strongest possible terms against putting both kinds of drugs into the same brain. Best case scenario, this ends with her in the hospital. They're 30 meters up in the air now, 10 stories. There's a stabbing pain developing in her left eye. She kicks her shoes off and throws the gun away. She goes to the edge and contemplates the drop for a disbelieving second. She jumps. It takes 2 heart-stopping seconds of free fall for her to hit the water. The chilled hammer blow of the impact is enough to blank her mind out. By the time she surfaces, she doesn't remember where she fell from, or why. And likewise, the skyscraper-sized being which claimed Marness in the boat has forgotten about her. What the hell, she gasps. There's nothing above her, no explanation. Only the symptoms of the drug cocktail give her any indication of what just happened. A sensation like hundreds of tiny lumps of hot solder in her brain, and pain and exhaustion spreading to all of her tendons. She wants to die. Swim, says part of her. Get to shore first, then you can die. The extraction team finds her around dusk, unconscious on the lake shore. They stabilize her in the helicopter, then take her to Site 41 for examination and to have her system flushed. She spends a solid 8 days at home, detoxifying. No nestics, no amnestics, no exposure to dangerous memory-corrupting SCPs, no work visitors. No work, the doctor also tells her, pointlessly. It isn't anywhere near the first missing event in her life, nor is she the first person in the anti-memetic staff to have such an experience, but the sensation is no less disturbing for its familiarity. As per procedure, she writes a report summarizing everything she can remember. The gap in her memory is about 13 hours. Then she adds her report to the extensive, complex map of missing time which the whole division maintains collectively. It is a map of holes, and the map is becoming large enough that very faint patterns are gradually forming. The outline of an enemy is becoming visible, or perhaps a group of enemies. When she quizzes the extraction team later, none of them remember who activated the emergency beacon which summoned them. In fact, the beacon itself cut out long before they landed at the lake. Marion compares the current size of her division with her best estimate of what it should be. Maybe she needs a few more key people here and there. So, assuming the division was fully staffed before the event, maybe those empty roles are the people who died this time around. Maybe one of them activated the beacon. A commendable act by someone now only known to exist because of that single act. It's weeks later still that Marion discovers the largest new hole in her memory. Who founded the division? When? Chapter 4. Case Colorless.
More and more holes are popping up. That is evidence of the world, like for a millennium now, slowly pulling back.
Green. Item number SCP-3125. Object class Keter. Special containment procedures. SCP-3125 is kept inside Cognitohazard Containment Unit 3125 on the first floor of Site 41. This containment unit is a 10 meter by 15 meter by 3 meter cuboidal room clad in layers of lead, soundproofing, and telepathic shielding. Access is through an airlock system at one end of the containment unit. This airlock is programmed to allow only one person to enter the containment unit at a time, and to remain locked until this person exits before allowing another person to enter. Under no circumstances may any coherent information be allowed to leave the containment unit. This includes written and electronic notes, photographs, audio and video recordings, sound, electromagnetic and particle-based signals, and psi emanations. During the exit cycle, a purge system rigged to the airlock flushes the occupant's memory by flooding the airlock with amnestic gas for 3 minutes. A senior Anti-Memetics Division staff member must visit SCP-3125 every 6 weeks. End of file. Paul Kim incredulously asks if that's the whole entry. Marion confirms that that's the whole entry. It isn't even the 50th strangest thing Paul Kim has seen in the database, but still, no description, no acquisition report, no test log, no addenda, no clue who built the unit, or when, or how many times it's been visited, or who carried out the previous visits, or what they took in with them, or how long they were in there. Marion replies that obviously Bart Hughes built the unit, and this cannot be denied. The man's signature style of containment architecture is recognizable a mile out. Sleek, white, plainly impregnable without the aid of extremely heavy tools. That makes it at least 7 years old, so 60 visits or more. She guesses there are good reasons for the rest of those omissions. The timer watchdog says it's time again. Kim doesn't like the idea of her routinely exposing herself to a cognitohazard so dangerous that they can't even write the reason why they can't write it down. Especially because it's impossible for them to recover any usable information this way. She's going to go in, be incommunicado for 2 hours, and come out a smiling amnesiac. What do they gain from that? It's just a breach risk. Marion hears every word of this and elects to ignore it all. There's a vague shape of familiarity about the entry as written. There are a few word choices which reassure her in an intangible way that it was written by someone who knew what they were doing. Possibly her. Kim continues, saying that they should just scrub that last line from the database entry. There can't be anything good in that room. Marion puts her keycard in the slot, and the airlock rewards her with green LEDs, beginning to cycle open. It's built as a slender vertical cylinder with a single opening. The entire thing rotates on its axis. Inside, there's barely room for a single person to stand without their shoulders touching the walls. Kim asks her what she's taking, and she turns to face him and shrugs, replying, "A stick of gum." Kim tells her that he can get her field gear as the airlock begins to rotate again, emitting a low, quiet thrum solely as an audible warning that there is machinery in motion. They can raid the inventory, and if she'll give him 15 minutes, they'll turn her into a one-woman war. If Marion says anything in response to this, it's cut off by the soundproofing as the airlock rotates. Kim is left alone in the antechamber. He stares at the outer door for a worried moment. He presses his ear to the door for a while, but hears nothing. Not even a faint tremble from the airlock mechanism. Inside, it's pitch dark for a few seconds. Then some unseen sensor detects Marion's presence and brings the fluorescents up. Half of them, anyway, as the others remain inert or flicker aggravatingly. The room's interior walls are made from milky white glass, bulletproof, knowing Hughes, and plastered with paperwork, taped and blue-tacked up in vaguely coherent masses. Where there is no paperwork, people have drawn directly on the walls in marker pen. There is a conference table, long and elliptical, covered with more paperwork and a tangle of laptop computers and serpentine power supply cables. Power has returned to the machines and they are slowly booting. A data projector warms up and shines a map of the world over the far wall, almost lining up with a network of scribbled annotations on the same wall. Post-it notes of all colors litter the carpet like autumn leaves. Other than that, the room is empty. Skimming the paperwork, Marion discovers that nearly all of it is handwritten, and most of it charts the progress of conversations. Most of the entries are dated and signed, and most of the dates are weeks apart. The conversations are panicked and fearful back and forths about dozens of SCPs, some of them anti-memetic in nature, but none of them obviously related to one another. None of the notes mention SCP-3125. The only name Marion recognizes is her own, which appears on 1 in 10 or 20 of the notes. The notes seem authentic, and the handwriting is hers, but her notes also seem as desperate and uncertain in tone as everybody else's. This unnerves her. There are diagrams on the walls, too, which are too complex to decode at a glance, but complex enough to make her eyes hurt to look at them. Still lost for a logical entry point to the data, she curses all of her predecessors. Asynchronous research, whereby the research topic is forgotten entirely between iterations and rediscovered over and over, is a perfectly standard practice in the Anti-Memetics Division, and her people ought to be better trained than this. There should be an obvious single document to read first, which makes sense of the rest. A primer. She hears a voice calling her name, recognizing it as her own. She moves around the table until she finds the laptop making the noise. There's a video playing, apparently recorded on the laptop's own camera in this room. The Marion Wheeler in the video is seated.
Here you go, a primer.
And looks unfamiliar in a way which takes the one watching a moment to put her finger on. Not exhausted, not sick, not physically injured. She's seen herself that way before, in the mirror. This woman's willpower is gone. She's beaten. The laptop Marion says that she's guessed already that SCP-3125 is not in this room. In fact, this is the only room in the world where SCP-3125 is not present. It's called inverted containment. SCP-3125 pervades all of reality except for
Inverted containment. Better say to protect yourself.
volumes which have been specifically shielded from its influence. This is it. This is their only safe harbor. This room represents the length and breadth of the war. Every competent anti-memetics research project finds SCP-3125's fingerprints sooner or later. It manifests all over the world, in thousands of different forms. Most of them aren't even anomalous. Some of them they already have cataloged separately in the main database. A very small number of them are even in containment. Impossibly virulent cults, broken arithmetic, invisible spiders as tall as skyscrapers, people born with extra organs which nobody can see. That's the raw data. Those manifestations are troublesome enough to deal with in their own right. The Marion in the video casts around, picks up a bright green felt-tip pen and a blank piece of paper. She begins drawing a shape, which isn't visible from the camera's perspective, while still talking. Once you get a little further down the road, you start to see a pattern emerging in the data. You need to have the training in memetic science, but once you have that training and you have the data in front of you, it only takes a little extra effort to arrange those data points in conceptual space and draw a contour through them. Those data points are points on SCP-3125's hull. Those manifestations are the shadows it casts on our reality. You link 4 or 5 different SCPs together into a single shape, and you see it. And it sees you. She's still drawing. It's detailed. She doesn't look up, and her tone of voice is distant, almost as if she's narrating the tail end of a frightening children's story. When that happens, when you make eye contact, it kills you. It kills you, and it kills anybody who thinks like you. Physical distance doesn't matter. It's about mental proximity. Anybody with the same ideas, anybody in the same headspace. It kills your collaborators, your whole research team. It kills your parents. It kills your children. You become absent humans, human-shaped shells surrounding holes in reality. And when it's done, your project is a hole in the ground, and nobody knows what SCP-3125 is anymore. It is a black hole in anti-memetic science, consuming unwary researchers and yielding no information, only detectable through indirect observation. A true description of what SCP-3125 is, or even an allusion to what it is, constitutes a containment breach and a lethal indirect cognitohazard. It's a defense mechanism. This information-swallowing behavior is just the outer layer, the poison coating. It protects the entity from discovery while it infests our reality. And as years pass, the manifestations will continue, growing denser and knitting together until the whole world is drowning in them, and everybody will be screaming, "Why did nobody realize what was happening? and nobody will answer, because everybody who realized was killed by this system. Marion is at the core of Foundation Anti-Memetic science. She had all the raw data readily accessible. There are extensive written calculations on the walls, but she doesn't need to read them. She can do them in her head. All it took was that slightest push, that slightest suggestion. Staring through the laptop screen, eyes wide and defocused, she understands how it all links together. She sees SCP-3125. She feels dwarfed by it. She's encountered terrible, powerful ideas before, at every level of memeticity, and subdued them or even recruited them. But what she's picturing now is on another order of magnitude from what she knew to be possible. Now that she knows it's there, she can feel it like cosmic radiation, boring holes in the world with its thousands of manifestations.
It's hard to describe what the anomaly is. To simplify it into an incorrect but existing structure, it's a beast and monster that is boring tentacles into reality. Each poke is a manifestation. Anomalous breaks in reality. For centuries and not millennia, they have been fighting this war, not even knowing it. Every time a team tries to figure out, it blows the entire project. The automatic defense system comes in. The idea wants to be non-rememberable, anti-memetic, until it can consume everything in whole.
And freely laying waste to anybody who recognizes the larger pattern. It's not of reality, not of humanity. It is from a higher, worse place, and it is descending. The other Marion presents her finished diagram. She has drawn a mutated, fractally complex grasping hand with 5-fold symmetry. It has no wrist or arm, just 5 long human fingers pointing in 5 directions. At its core, there is a pentagonal opening, which could be a mouth. But the diagram was already there. It's plastered across the wall in the background of the video, plain as day. A meticulous collage in green, easily 2 meters in diameter, and showing the same meme complex to 100 times the level of detail. There are smaller diagrams of different elevations arrayed around it like spores, and its arms are spread wide around the seated Marion, who sits directly in front of the mouth, with her back to it. She does not realize this, and does not turn around. The Marion in the video asks how you fight an enemy without ever does not, who sits directly in front of the mouth, with hers, and its arms are spread wide around the seated Marion, who sits directly in front of the mouth, with her back to it. She does not realize this, and does not turn around. The Marion in the video asks how you fight an enemy without ever discovering it exists. How do you win without even realizing you're at war? What do they do? 7 years ago, there were more than 400 anti-memetics research groups worldwide. Government agencies, military branches, private corporations, university projects. Many of them were groups of interest or subdivisions of groups of interest. They were allied with most of them. They were at the spearhead of an anti-memetics coalition which spanned the whole globe and thousands upon thousands of people. None of those groups still exist. The last one ceased to exist sometime in the last 72 hours. 3 years ago, Foundation Anti-Memetics was an organization of more than 4,000 people. Now it's 90. There's no war. They've lost the war. It's over. This is the...
The countless groups have been doing this for 1,000 years. Let's say 1,000 years. 400, it doesn't matter. The because the path is unstoppable. The only thing you have to do is to try to delay it as long as possible.
Mopping up operation. The only reason they still exist at all is because they have better amnestic biochemistry than anybody else in the world. Because that's all you can do when you see SCP-3125. Run away and try to forget what you saw. Seek oblivion in chemicals, or alcohol, or head trauma. And even that can't work every time. It's circling in. They meet it over and over again, and they don't realize it. There's no way they can stop themselves from rediscovering it. They're too damned smart. She points at something on the wall, out of view of the laptop's camera. Marion, watching, turns to look. In an upper corner of the room, there is a constellation of dizzyingly complicated schematics. Bart Hughes' initials are on every page. There's a machine they could build, Marion says. All it would take is 8 years, a lab as big as West Virginia, and all the money in the world. Nothing that the O5 Council would blink at if they went to them. But how do we build that machine without any of them realizing what it's for? It would be like building and launching Apollo 11 without a single engineer deducing that the moon existed. The logistics would be insane, but the secrecy would be well past impossible. Someone would start asking questions, and then it would be over. So what do? Marion, in the room, says find another way. The fatalistic tone of voice makes her angry, and she asks what the hell's wrong with her. The video, Marion says that she could tell everybody to walk away. She could send a little message to herself saying, there's danger down this road. You should disband the anti-memetics division and pursue other projects. But she'd be suspicious. She'd start asking questions, and then it would be over. Marion is
last time when you went to the guy who did this.
Now crouched in front of the video, trying to understand what she's watching. She asks what's wrong, and if she's okay. The recording continues, saying that she could kill herself in here, but the team would find SCP-3125 without her, and then they'd have to fight 3125 without her. It's going to happen soon, whatever happens. In the next 2 months at most. This year it will be over. She may die in here anyway. She's on so many nestic drugs that her endocrine system is shutting down. Taking amnestics at the same time is the chemical equivalent to trepanation. She doesn't remember the last time she slept without having a nightmare about Adam. And she's starting to forget whether SCP-4987 is a real thing or just the number that she gave to her life. Marion, in the room, says that she's not like this. She's stronger than this. What happened to her? Who's Adam? The video, Marion says that she doesn't know how they survived this. She doesn't know how they...
Adam, this is insane. You already have decayed to this point. Never believed that. You can't remember even your own husband. Adam. That's sad to see. Adam is Adam Wheeler, her husband. Truly to see so many bare bones amount of characters, it is truly the end of the war. They must fight. They must win. But you can't kill the idea. There will be.
They win. They're the last ones in the world. After them, there's nobody. Marion shakes her head, not believing it. Video, Marion says that she's done. She's going to walk out of this door and forget who she is, and then she's going to be heard, and she'll have to figure out a way out of this, because she can't. She gets up and moves off screen. She can be heard breathing deeply, and her speech is starting to distort. She says that her eyes hurt, and she thinks Iller starting in Malawi inside. There's the sound of a door opening, and then a piercing pulse of sound and light, which terminates the recording. Marion stares at the dark screen for a long minute. She's never seen herself so weak, and it damages her ego a great deal to see that it's possible. She feels disconnected from what she saw, like it happened in an alternate universe. She feels revulsed and appalled by that version.
You have only just forgotten so many things. So, she has fought a war. You are her, but it's like a war veteran losing all of their memories. They're that fresh newbie. You don't understand just how quite of a fresh newbie you are. Like you were before you knew the war even existed. The war that you lost. And now the war that you're trying to hopefully pull back as far as you can.
Of her. More so to know that that version is still inside her somewhere. It doesn't make sense. She's looking at all of the same facts. What made her give up? What did she know that she doesn't? Who was Adam? The answer to this question is so obvious and sickening that she instinctively distrusts it. She circles around the answer, probing it, trying to find reasons to reject it, but it's inescapable. Adam was someone she knew when the video was recorded, now completely removed from her memory. Adam was someone the thought of whose safety paralyzed her with fear. Someone in the same headspace. Someone she couldn't bear to lose. And then she lost. But how'd the room get built in the first place? Anybody's guess. She imagines Hughes building it as a proof of concept, followed by a cascading series of lucky chances which led to it becoming the war room. Someone discovered SCP-3125 at random, while sealed in the room. They wrote notes to themselves which set up the skeletal external SCP database entry and the containment procedures. Most of the paperwork and computer hardware was left behind by later visitors. It could have happened. But what if there's another room? Unbidden, a cute factoid comes back to her right then. Site 41 is almost completely vacant. In particular, 200 meters below Site 41, there's an empty heavy engineering lab, an underground complex the size of a hockey stadium. Nobody has entered it in living memory. Built who knows how many decades back by a dead generation of anti-memeticists. What if that's where they built their weapon? Does she really believe she's that smart? That her team and her had that much foresight? That they got that lucky? She turns to look at the airlock, running the numbers in her head. Anti-memetics division staff, other than her, 38. 42 days until the next iteration. That's past the end of the year. It'll be too late. If she leaves this room now, she'll never be back. The plan she has now is the best plan there's ever going to be. They're the last ones in the world. After them, there's nobody. Kim is so deeply buried in work at his terminal, and the airlock is so quiet that he almost doesn't notice when it starts to cycle open again. He begins to say that they need to check her for notes, but then he sees that Marion is curled up in the bottom of the narrow cylinder, panting as though she just finished a marathon run. Kim holds a hand out, but she shakes her head, electing to stay lying down, knees bent up to her chest, sucking down lungfuls of air. He asks what in the world happened in there, but she just gasps that she needs to breathe. She'll be okay in a second, and she thinks she blacked out for a moment. She thinks she's okay. She remembers the plan. Kim looks confused and worried for a second, then says that she shouldn't be able to remember anything. What did she do? Marion replies that she hit her head and goes back to concentrating on breathing properly. She suddenly becomes acutely aware that Kim has her effectively cornered. Disliking this configuration for reasons which she's only gradually putting back together, she levers herself up to one shoulder and tries to stand. Kim puts the hand on her shoulder and pushes her.
She better run. She's starting to remember. And the more she remembers, the more she needs to run. Get to the
back
weapon.
Down, telling her that she looks terrible. He says that there's something in'll fleth her neck. He points at her throat, then taps the same spot on his own. He says that he neth hly she's been infected by whatever was in there. They need to act quickly. He reaches for his keyring and unthreads a Swiss Army knife, unfolding a short, gleaming blade. He does this in such a methodical, ordinary way that Marion almost forgets to react when he leans down towards her to cut her throat. Almost. She grips his wrist. They're locked like that for a moment. A tableau. She looks into Paul Kim's eye, but it isn't his eye anymore. She squints, wondering if she's making eye contact with anything but a hole in space. She already feels the force bearing down on her own skull, trying to drill into it. But she knows its shape, and that means she can hold out, maybe for a few minutes. She had hoped, prayed, that Kim would not succumb so quickly. And in a crazed little way, she thought there would at least be a sign, a theatrical doubling over as his mind was rent.
Everything has been taken over already. You have lost the war. Of course, there is no sign. It was already taken over. Everything has been taken over. You're the last one left. And the last one left that can go and do something. Wheeler, you're the last
Punched
one.
out of its socket. Kim's wrist spasms as he tries to lunge with the knife. Marion parries, and its tip glances off the airlock interior wall with a screech. They scuffle for an awkward second. Then she boots him in the stomach with both feet, sending him sprawling in the antechamber. She launches out of the airlock, dives over him, and sprints away from the containment unit. She feels SCP-3125 following her as she runs, like a spotlight. She hears a crash in another part of the site, as the first piece of ceiling caves in. Chapter 5. Your last first day. Marion is curled up in the corner of Site 41's main freight elevator, descending, clutching a shiny red ray gun almost as long as she is tall. The gun has a two-tined prong instead of a barrel, and its stock is a weirdly asymmetrical mass of pipework, more like a Swiss watch or a small intestinal tract than a weapon. The gun is SCP-7381, and it comes from a long-dead planet, not too distant a planet, when all said and done, which conventional astronomy has yet to observe. A tornado of violence and destruction is tearing through Site 41 and through the minds of everybody working at Site 41. Ceilings are being brought down. The site pharmacy is a sucking hole at the side of the building. The armory is buried. That's why she had to go through Area 09 and is now toting anomalous weaponry instead. The Anti-Memetics Division operatives she meets in the corridors are all broken. Some of them curled up and raving while their minds evaporate and they die one memory at a time. Some infected with a collection of ideas which compel them to shout guttural phrases in strange languages and to procure blades, never guns, and work on those demented victims, and each other, and themselves. Marion doesn't recognize any of the people. Their faces are all wrong, torn up with hatred and misery and vindictive glee. She's been trying to avoid fighting, but she's had to kill one man in self-defense. Fired at his heart, SCP-7381 simply erased a half-meter-wide cylinder of matter, removing his upper torso and lower jaw. He fell to the ground in 4 pieces. SCP-7381's beam is invisible, silent, and recoilless. It was like using a child's toy gun. Marion is petrified, but more than that, angry. This is too much, she says out loud, willing her heart rate back under control. She can't deal with this. She shouldn't have to deal with this. It's her first day. But how much sense does that make? Marion studies her reflection in the dark glass of the elevator control panel, and she tours the interior of her own skull, examining her thought processes. There are hints there, which would be difficult to articulate to someone who didn't know her as well as she knows herself. She isn't thinking like a newbie. She's instinctively breaking the problem apart, the way an experienced Foundation operative should. Hell, a newbie wouldn't even know how to carry out a detailed psychological self-examination of this kind. A newbie wouldn't even think of it. A newbie would just suffocate. The first thing it did when it saw her, she explains to her reflection, was eat everything she knew about the division, and everything she knew about it. If she had a plan, it ate the plan, but she's still herself, so she can come up with that plan again. It's already right in front of her. She just needs to see it. If she were her, what would her plan have been? She scratches absently at her left wrist. Taking some hardcore amnestic drugs would have been a smart first step, she guesses, reinforcing her mind so that it can't erase the rest of the steps. The nearest source of amnestic medicine is in the site pharmacy, but it's already been destroyed, and in any case the elevator is headed down, away from it. She thinks to herself to stop, though. How does she know that the pharmacy has been destroyed? Well, because she was there. She remembers finding the pharmacist crushed to death beneath a fallen medical cabinet, her skull an unrecognizable splatter of scarlet. She remembers the floor being torn away beneath her feet, and only barely making it out of that portion of the building alive. She remembers a modular package colored safety orange, with an enormous black Z on it. Her heart nearly stops at this. What did she do? She remembers the dozens of warning signs covering the package. She remembers the 3-factor authorization procedure she had to follow to get into the sealed container where it was stored. She remembers the centimeter-thick book of medical advisory information, which she discarded. And rolling her left sleeve back, she finds a fresh needle mark with a speck of blood, and remembers administering the injection. This was her plan? This is what it takes to fight SCP-3125? She's killed herself. Class Z nestics are the last word in biochemical memory fortification. Class Z nestics permanently destroy the subject's ability to forget. The result is a perfect eidetic memory and perfect immunity to arbitrarily strong anti-memetic interference. The dose is taking effect now. Marion didn't read the book because she already knew every word of it. She knows everything that's about to happen to her. She can already feel her mind hardening like steel and the developing symptoms of extreme sensory overload. She can see everything. There are extra buttons on the elevator control panel, the lowest of which, the 30th floor below ground level, she somehow already pushed. The walls of the elevator are covered with graffiti scrawled by the desperate and dying, people whose conceptual presence was eradicated from reality years earlier by the Aleister Gray anti-memetic kill agent, reducing them to the level of ghosts. In one corner of the freight elevator, there's even a half corpse, unidentifiable. So many layers removed from reality that not even flies can smell it. Its cells winking out of existence asymptotically over the course of years. There is a fistful of tiny white worms exploring the floor of the elevator car, near where she's sitting. Revolted, Marion shuffles back from them, shaking one or two more of them out of her hair. The worms are among the most widespread and successful anti-memetically cloaked organisms in the world. They are everywhere, in every biome, in every room. She can hear a long, alarming drone noise, a continual roaring which has the texture of ambient noise and is continually getting louder. It's as if it's been there for her entire life, and it's only now that she's begun to hear it. It's too much data, too much sound, too much light. Having her eyes open is like jamming them full of needles. She clamps her hands over her ears and screws her eyes up. Even like this, she feels the vibration of the elevator's slow descent and the heat of the failed air conditioning and the movement of her clothes on her skin. And meanwhile, her vision is flooding instead with what could be hallucinations. The human sensorium routinely generates huge amounts of data, and the human brain is adapted to discard almost all of that data nearly immediately. Altering the brain's behavior to retain that data is extremely dangerous, even for very short time spans. Marion takes one hand away from her ear for just long enough to punch the metal wall of the elevator car, bloodying two knuckles. The pain gives her a focal point, a memory which screams a little louder than the rest. And she finds the plan. She doesn't remember it. She bootstraps it from first principles in a handful of minutes, just like she's done 100 times before. I know how to beat you, she says. No, SCP-3125 says to her. You don't. The elevator stops at the 30th floor below ground, and its doors grind open. They wait, open, for a long time. Further up the elevator shaft, there are the distant rumbles of more parts of Site-41 being reduced to crumbs. Still crouched in the corner, she mutters that SCP-3125 doesn't have a voice. Of course it does, it replies. She states that SCP-3125 is a 5-dimensional anomalous metastasized mass of bad memes and bad anti-memes and everything in between, seeping through to our physical reality. It isn't coherent, and it isn't intelligent. It can't communicate. This is an auditory hallucination. SCP-3125 scoffs and replies that what it hates most about her is that she's consistently, eternally wrong, and yet she's still alive. All those lost battles, every year of that entire lost war, but somehow she always cobbles together enough dumb luck to walk away unscathed. The eternal sole survivor. She doesn't deserve that kind of luck. Nobody does. While it's talking, Marion leans hard on the ray gun to get to her feet. She lodges one shoulder against the wall of the elevator car, still with her eyes closed. She braces herself and opens her eyes. The corridor ahead is empty. There's an airlock at the far end, this one large enough to drive a truck through, built from ultra-toughened white metal alloy in Bart Hughes' established style. There's a panel beside the airlock. She closes her eyes again and hobbles forward, using the ray gun as a crutch, stretching one hand out ahead of her as guidance. Someone has to be last, she says, gritting her teeth. Someone has to be the best. Your team is dead, SCP-3125 says. Their minds have been pulled out like eyeballs. They're hollow people, with holes in space where their brains were. The war is over. Finally. It's just you, Marion. A division of one. Dying from nestic overdose. 200 meters underground. Cared for by no one. Known to exist to no one. Up against an immortal, unkillable idea. Marion reaches the airlock and fumbles blindly with the panel until she finds the slot for her keycard. For a few seconds, it seems as if nothing is happening. Then a yellow light flashes. The enormous mechanical interlocks unlatch, and the door cycles open with all the fuss of a flower's petals unfurling. Noise, Hughes always held, is a symptom of imperfect engineering. Behind her, she hears the freight elevator close up and return to ground level, and she knows that someone has summoned it, intending to pursue her. Ideas can be killed, she says, as she steps into the airlock. The entity asks how, and she replies, with better ideas. As the airlock cycles closed, so does the hermetic seal. SCP-3125 is shut out. If something can cross over from conceptual space into reality, taking physical form, then something can cross in the opposite direction. It must be possible to take a physical entity, mechanically extract the idea which it embodies, amplify that idea, and broadcast it up into conceptual space. A bigger idea, a better idea, one designed specifically to fight SCP-3125. An ideal, a movement, a hero.
Can you make that hero? Can you make that idea? Can you truly make something that can kill? The fifth dimensional idea of bad means and ideals and everything. But it doesn't matter. As the foundation, even if it doesn't exist, even if something like a physical thing doing the reverse of what it's doing, it will happen anyway. It's the foundation and will do the impossible. And to see, I guess I'll say it. Anyone who's watching this video, or at all, you have a 20-second free period before we say the spoilers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything before this point, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Before we say this, remember, skip a minute forward. Adam Wheeler becomes the idea. Amplified by a project of here, dead Foundation members of the Foundation as reality collapses. The Foundation in heaven. As the Foundation collapses, around the world collapses once the idea brings itself into reality and the XK class scenario begins. He becomes that idea to kill the SCP. Not really kill it. You can't kill it. You need to unprove it. That's the exact mathematical language. Throw equations at it. Throw equations that disprove its existence. Break it down little by little until the ideal disappears. Or well to say, gets unproven. Not disappears. It never exists.
The machine Marion needs to build is the size of an Olympic stadium, and she doesn't have a fraction of the heavy memetic engineering experience to do it, let alone the material resources or the time. But she knows. Someone taught her, she doesn't remember who, that an anti-memetics division operative is as good on their first day as they're ever likely to be. And the same must be true of the division as a whole. She tells herself, they won this war on the day it began. When they encountered SCP-3125 for the first time, they built this bunker. Bart Hughes faked his death and sequestered himself here so he could work uninterrupted, while the rest of the division held on for as long as humanly possible, buying time for this moment. She knows this is what she did, because it's what she would have done. She's the final component. He's waiting for her. The space beyond the airlock is gigantic, structured and lit like an aircraft hangar and filled with hot, stale, dry air. Marion, still mostly blind, stumbles forward across an expanse of more than a hectare of flat, dusty epoxy flooring. She shouts out for Hughes into the void, but nothing comes back but the echo. She glances up for a second. The space is empty. The castle-sized mimetic amplification broadcasting unit which Bart Hughes was meant to be building is absolutely absent. Hughes himself is absent. Maybe the entire machine is anti-mimetically cloaked, she wonders momentarily. It would be a smart way to conceal the operation even from the rest of the Foundation. But her brain is curdling in the strongest amnestic drugs ever manufactured. There's genuinely nothing here. Almost nothing. At the center of the space, there's a small outpost, a group of trestle tables with tools and toolboxes scattered about the place. Parked behind it is an unmarked military truck with flat tires. On the back of the truck is a squat, squarish machine the size of a shipping container, with unshielded wiring and exposed pipework, and a long cable leading to a heavy-duty control panel on the floor. To the untrained eye, it is not at all clear what the machine is designed to do. It's the anti-mimetic equivalent to a hydrogen bomb, the division's answer to an on-site nuclear warhead. Activated, it would contaminate Site-41 and everything and everyone on it with anti-mimetic radiation. There would be no Site-41, and no division afterwards. Nothing any of the escaping infectious staff did could have any effect on the real world. It's the wrong machine. It can't destroy or contain SCP-3125, or even injure it. All it can do is sterilize today's outbreak. The other symptoms will persist. 50 or 10 or 5 years from now, or maybe 1 year, or maybe tomorrow, SCP-3125 will return, bringing with it its MK-class end-of-world scenario. Human civilization will be entirely eradicated as an abstract concept, and be replaced with something unimaginably worse. There will be no one to fight it. Marion leans there on the ray gun for a long moment. The pressure of information in her mind, continually increasing, reaches a point where she can't take it anymore, and she starts to break. The Class Z has been in her system for long enough now that she knows for a fact she has irreversible brain damage. There is no antidote. She'll be lucid for another hour, then spend the remaining 2 or 3 hours of her life vegetated. That's right, she thinks. It's almost a relief. This is good. This is right. She's survived too long. She forgot what universe this was. For a while there, she thought, maybe, that this was the universe where they win sometimes. The agony in her head is like an ice axe now. She drops the ray gun with a clatter, lies down and waits for either death or a better idea. A being superficially resembling Paul Kim arrives at the outer airlock door. It examines the airlock uncomprehendingly for a few moments, then finds the keycard slot. It hunts methodically through Kim's pockets, then remembers the keycard around its neck. The airlock cycles once more, and not Kim goes through. Behind it, the freight elevator is returning to ground level a third time, to fetch the rest. In the next room, the being which is not Paul Kim finds Marion, unconscious, a gun dropped beside her. There is also a military truck, which it disregards. Not Kim lets its keycards fall from its fingers and scoops up the ray gun. For a moment, it contemplates the unconscious Marion, then examines the gun itself, remembering how it works. It turns back to face the airlock and fires, punching fat cylindrical holes in the white metal of the inner door until it's gone, then the outer door too, breaching the hermetic seal. A faint smile returns to Not Kim's face as SCP-3125 and its familiar, comforting signals flood into the bunker. A dozen more non-people are arriving by freight elevator, former Anti-Mimetics Division bodies. "I've found her," Not Kim calls out to them. It drops the ray gun where it's standing, as if it simply forgot that it had been carrying anything, and pulls out its knife again. It holds the knife between 2 fingers, in a casual, offhand sort of way, as if it were a pencil or screwdriver. The infected non-people gather with Not Kim around Marion, looking down at her with alien expressions of disgust, or pity, or malice. Why isn't she opening up properly, someone asks. She can't meet them unless she wants the signals. Start with her eyes, says someone else. It'll make the rest of her easier to correct. Not Kim leans down to start work, then hesitates, its knife a few centimeters from Marion's eye. She's whispering something, so quietly that only it can hear her clearly. "None of this happened, Paul," she says. "You and I never existed. There is no Anti-Mimetics Division." There's a sharp click as the bomb finishes its powering up sequence. Nobody in the room can hear this but Marion. Nobody in the room can perceive the bomb but Marion. All they can see is an empty truck. The world goes black. Despite the seeming finality of that chapter, this is not the ending to this story. It's little surprise that SCP-3125 is the chief villain of this tale, being certainly the grandest and most horrific of all the anti-memetic anomalies. It's a danger you can't face, can't even study without becoming aware of it, and as soon as you are, your mind is gone. Marion just saved the world temporarily by blasting the infected site with an anti-memetic bomb, wiping all trace of them and their knowledge of SCP-3125's existence from the planet. But that certainly doesn't kill the entity. We'll find out the ramifications of this in the next part.
One person. Whoa! We are still going to continue with part 2. Reason why is because there are 2 more parts currently are left in this video. I want to partly finish until we reach 4 o'clock. So we're continuing on the next thing, and then we'll see. And then we'll see if we can do part. Well, we can.
Gaza is at a tipping point. The adults who are malnourished today will die. That is preventable, and it's.
There is no anti-memetics division. Part 3. The previous part of this series ended with quite a bang, not from a nuke, but from a massive anti-memetic bomb that wiped out an entire site from conventional perception. It was set off by the head of the anti-memetics division, Marion Wheeler, after finding out about the existence of SCP-3125 and the danger it presents to all of human life. We were left on a massive cliffhanger as to what happened to both Marion and the world at large, but it might be a bit before the smoke clears. Let's take a look. Before we move on to more of the tale, we're given another SCP to read, 2256. SCP-2256 is a species of gigafauna which was endemic to the South Pacific Ocean around the islands of Polynesia, and was one of the very few recorded species known to have developed rudimentary perceptual/anti-memetic camouflage, rendering them nearly impossible for other sentient beings to perceive or remember. This adaptation is theorized to have arisen in order to elude predators. It was the largest species to have lived on Earth, and resembled spindly, vertically elongated giraffes or brachiosauruses, with adults of the species growing to over 1,000 meters in height. They weighed no more than 4 tons, with most of their mass being camouflaged by a very similar adaptation. With their broad, dish-shaped feet, they were able to walk directly on the surface of the ocean without sinking. They navigated the ocean alone or in groups of 2 to as many as 2,000 individuals. They were reluctant to approach land, especially inhabited islands, usually staying more than 30 kilometers offshore. Because of their height, they were visible on the horizon at this distance. Polynesian natives of the island of Maikiti used a substance called tucoca for recreational and religious purposes. As well as being a moderate psychedelic, this drug had nestic properties, suppressing anti-memetic effects and making entities camouflaged in this way easier to see and remember. Thus, the Maiketians were, for hundreds of years, the only people able to see 2256. In their mythology, the creatures were wandering spirits whom the gods had charged with maintaining the horizon to ensure that the sky and the water never mixed. They were characterized as well-meaning and friendly, but unintelligent and often deficient in their duties, resulting in storms and typhoons. They were called Kakao, the ones who walk very slowly. In 1991, an internal biochemistry study revealed that Tucoca bore a strong chemical resemblance to the Foundation's own Class W nestic. A Foundation anthropologist was assigned to follow up on the Maiketian legend and became the first outsider to observe 2256. An observation post was quickly established on the island to study the creatures, with routine containment analysis determining that they were safe and required no special containment procedures, or even particular efforts towards secrecy. They did, however, prove immediately to be impossible to capture photographically. Photographic negatives of the species faded into transparency over the course of a few minutes. Similar decay also affected videotape, audio tape, celluloid film, digital and electronic scans, etc. The observation team soon returned most of their equipment to inventory and proceeded using pencils and paper. At the time, it was believed that such recordings would be effectively permanent. The creature's population declined slightly in 1992 and 1993, then dropped sharply from 1994 onwards. A combination of contributing factors were observed: illness, infertility, and an increased rate of stillbirths. In 2002, a field generator was developed which could penetrate and neutralize their anti-mimetic camouflage, allowing for conventional photography. The first and only close-up photograph of one of the creatures instantly killed it. It was concluded that direct observation of 2256 is injurious to them. This adaptation is believed to have arisen as a means of detecting predators, just as their anti-mimetic camouflage protected them from those same predators. Use of the field generator was immediately curtailed. It was subsequently hypothesized that the Foundation's ongoing passive observation of the species was intense enough to have harmful effects on them, and that was what was driving the species to extinction. Opinions differed sharply on the veracity of this hypothesis, over whether it should be tested, and over what could be done if it proved to be true. Several extreme options were proposed, including completely exterminating the species in order to preserve the data, and completely expunging the data to preserve them. No firm conclusions were made. In 2003, observation of the species was scaled back significantly, and the Foundation shifted focus from gathering data to analyzing existing data. However, the population continued to decline, and the last individual died near Tokelau on October 30th, 2006. In 2010, it was discovered that the anti-mimetic camouflage decay was spreading through paper records of the species. Now, more than 60% of paper documents are decaying, even with a strong nestic dose. The effect is even spreading into the SCP entry itself, despite shielding and redundancy in the system. Since the species is extinct, no new data about it can be generated, and it's estimated that full contamination will occur within 3 to 8 years. With that, we can continue our story. Chapter 6, SCP-3125.
And remember, the chamber where Wheeler was the dead bones of one of the creatures. Basically, house to shield from the intruders.
Yes, it's another SCP file, but this one we're a bit more familiar with now. I'll skip over what we know, that 3125 is a massive meme complex originating outside of our reality and now partially intersecting with it, and that it attacks and kills anyone who becomes aware of it. It's noted that 3125 could be effectively neutralized using a machine proposed by the late Dr. Bartholomew Hughes called an irreality amplifier. However, as well as requiring tremendous material resources, this machine could not be constructed without its builders understanding why it was being built, which would require an understanding of SCP-3125, which would prove fatal to the project. What we're really interested in is the article's addendums, the first of which states that data indicates the existence of a second containment unit at Site-41, which is also isolated from SCP-3125. This second unit, S041B30000, was built 210 meters below ground level, featuring identical broad-spectrum informational cladding, but has more than 1,000 times the volume of Cognitohazard Containment Unit 3125. Addendum 2 reads, and the rest, hopefully, is blindingly obvious. S041B30000 was originally constructed to house a long-term project to construct Hughes' irreality amplifier. While that's been going on, the rest of us have been fighting an unconscious war in order to buy time. We have been losing, but losing as slowly as humanly possible. The time we have bought is now up. It's an extremely bad sign that nobody inside S041B30000 has broken the seal yet, but there is no ground left for us to cede, and there are no more bodies to throw into SCP-3125's maw to slow it down. It is here, ready or not. I'm going to go to S041B30000 and use the machine. I think I can get the information out through the airlock. I think I can get to the vault alive. This was the plan. It's become garbled in the retelling because of variables, but I know that this was my plan, because I know myself. What else could it have been? Standard procedures that I have to tell you what to do next if this doesn't work. That's the Asynchronous Research Covenant. But I don't have a good picture of who you can even be, reading this and alive. In your scenario, there is no machine. Hughes is missing. I'm dead. The site is ruined. And how'd you even get in here? Can you be Foundation? Are you conscious? Is there a single word of this which you comprehend? You live in a world bathed with SCP-3125. That's the loss condition. I can't help someone who doesn't exist. Marion Wheeler, Chief of Anti-Memetics, November 30th, 2015. Addendum 3 reads, I found your body, and finding your body was a powerfully disorienting sensation for me, I don't mind admitting. I used to know a Marion. During the brief period in which I knew her, she wasn't one to admit defeat as easily as you. Still, that was a long time ago. Far be it from me to tell you your business. Trip. From the evidence I can see, this was never the only Anti-Memetics Division site. There were others. I imagine they're now all effectively invisible to most passers-by, of course, just like this one. But I presume that they, just like this one, still physically exist. Your plan, I think, was in place for longer than you know. And since you weren't at liberty to retain its details, you put it into action more than once. There is another vault fitting the description, truck-sized amnestic airlock and all. S-167-001-6183. Site-167 is a non-entity, of course, which is most likely why you missed it. It's likely ruined, and it's quite definitely a long goddamned way from here on foot. But still, I think it's better than half a chance. I could die on this boondoggle too, naturally, as the world has become something of a horror show of late. In any case, I trust that anybody following in my footsteps and reading these additional words will have the presence of mind to pursue the same basic strategy. Still existing, despite everything. Adam Wheeler, Interloper, May 4th, 2017. Chapter 7.
I feel like to fully explain what Adam Wheeler is. As a man, he is more resistant to cognitive hazards than most. He will need to explore and go through undying reality. If he is successful, then he will be able to win the war against the creature, get to the device, become the idea that needs to kill the five-sided god. The most powerful anti-memetic in history.
Where have you been all my life?
Foundation history.
Who the hell infiltrates a senior Foundation official's home while they're home? Marion Wheeler lives deep in coniferous forest, a long drive from the nearest major city, and a long drive in the opposite direction from Site 41. It's late, last thing, and she's reading in bed when she hears the muffled, unmistakable click of her front door being unlocked. She looks up and stares blankly at the wall for a second while listening to soft footsteps moving into the hallway. She marks her place and reaches for her Foundation-issued phone. She has no permanent security staff at home. The division is understaffed, and trained operatives are in much more serious need on site. But the building and grounds have beefy electronic countermeasures. They, she discovers, have all been disabled, along with the sensors and cameras. She was not notified that this had happened. Whoever did it had a valid code. Who, though? The Foundation has enemies. True, the list of credible, motivated enemies is surprisingly short, and the list of groups stupid enough to try to kill or capture someone at her level is shorter. But it's far from empty, and it's not actually so hard a feat. Not too many people below 05 level are privileged to travel in motorcades. The real trick, the impossible trick, is to avoid unholy retaliation. But what if you really think you can? What if you've decided it's worth it? Marion triggers the silent alarm. She sets her phone back down on the nightstand and collects her gun. She rolls out of bed, tucks a few pillows in her place, moves silently to her bedroom door and stands beside it, listening and thinking. This door, her bedroom door, can't be opened silently. It creaks like hell, so if she goes through it, she'll have to be ready to draw attention. There's an attic, but access is out there on the landing, and again, can't be operated silently. There's no alternate route to ground level other than jumping from the window, and someone has to be covering it. Even if she landed in the bushes alive, she'd still have to break the perimeter with a sprained ankle. A better question than who is how many. She may already be straight up dead, simply due to numbers. If the attackers tread cautiously and try to flush her out, she figures she can home alone her way through perhaps 8 of them before running out of luck. If they rush the second floor and have armor, she might be overwhelmed by as few as 2, even with the staircase acting as a choke point. All of this, naturally, assumes that the attackers aren't anomalous. If they are, and they're not in the, say, 30% of anomalies which can be neutralized simply by shooting them in the center mass and head, she may be fundamentally helpless even after the response team shows up, which will be, at best, 10 minutes from now. A creaking. This damned house. Someone is coming up the stairs, making no effort to be quiet about it. A soft tread, though, as if they removed their shoes. Just one of them. That barely makes sense. With 5 seconds grace, Marion casts around the dark room for a second weapon. She knows there are knitting needles downstairs in the lounge, and knives, good ones, in the kitchen, but she can't get to them. It's too late. The door's opening. It seems like the man's trying to say something as he comes in, but he only gets as far as whoop, and it's done. He's flat on his face, cheek pressed into deep cream carpet, with Marion on his back pinning both his wrists with her knees. She sights urgently back down the stairs for a second. There's no one there. She prods him in his other cheek with the muzzle of the gun. You speak, you die, she hisses. You try to move, you die. She glances at the windows, checks the stairs again, listens intently. There's no sound. There's nothing to be seen. The man is 50 and lanky. He wears an expensive dark suit, tailored to his build. He has angular features, thick, graying hair, and rimless spectacles, now quite possibly bent out of shape by their sudden impact with the floor. He wears discreet platinum jewelry, a wristwatch, cufflinks, and a ring. The two of them halt like that, a tableau. He makes no attempt to move, although he does look askance at Marion, as best he can given his dislodged glasses. She asks him where the others are, but he replies that it's just him. She asks who he is, and he says nothing for a moment, but his expression suddenly drops. He says that it really happened, didn't it? He always wondered. She asks him again who he is, and he replies that there's a monster which follows her around and eats her memories. SCP-4987. She drip feeds it with inconsequential trivia so it doesn't go after anything important. She watches game shows. The book she was reading just now on her nightstand is a trivia book. Marion says nothing to confirm or deny this, although it is true. At feeding time, the entity manifests like a bright gold-white spot in the corner of her eye. It's gone now. She's already put the rest of it together. It is all mind-bogglingly, insultingly obvious. With a well-suppressed but still detectable note of dismay, she asks him what his name is. Adam Wheeler, he replies. Obviously, she has the man detained. She instructs her people to interrogate him, lightly, and to run deep background research on every word he utters, while for her part, she stands far back from the investigation to avoid contamination. She resists the urge to interfere, particularly to visit Adam and personally demand answers. She goes to her office, curls up on the couch there and tries to catch some sleep, but doesn't succeed in any real sense. 7 hours later, a foundationer knocks on her office door, bringing an inch-thick block of printouts and a paralyzingly strong cup of coffee. She takes the drink first, accepting it as a kind of authentication step before letting the man in. She moves back to the couch and sits hunched over the drink for warmth, inhaling its fumes. The man settles heavily into a chair opposite. He is a misleadingly stocky, perpetually unshaven individual, somewhere just shy of 40, and inarguably the most dangerous person on the site. He is the division's physical fitness and combat instructor, and the leader of their solitary mobile task force. His name is Alex Gauss. He says that they figured he should be the one to present their results, even though he didn't research one line of it, because they get along, according to them. Personally, he doesn't see it. Marion stays focused on the coffee and asks who he is. Gauss opens the first page of the report, more for show than anything, then closes it again. He says that the man is her husband. Every word checks out. There is limitless physical evidence, and half the division knows him socially, including him. Gauss credits her diligence and adherence to protocol, but the bottom line is that SCP-4987 got hungry. Marion nods. This assessment matches her own, pieced together overnight from gut reactions and analysis of the plain facts. Where the hell else did her name come from? She wasn't born Wheeler, but she had to get independent verification. She asks him if this has happened before, but he says no. She then asks if it could happen again, and he shrugs. He says that she would know better than anyone. She replies that she would, and she does, and she can tell him this. She has SCP-4987 trained to follow her at her heel. She feeds it according to a strict regimen. It eats only the memories she says it's okay to eat. A rapidly progressive, universally fatal memory parasite made chronic and then domesticated. And now it suddenly breaks training? That adds up? Gauss cautiously replies that if she says that it doesn't add up, then it doesn't add up. But speaking from field experience, anything can happen twice. Marion has waited long enough and takes a long pull from the coffee. She stares into the coiling steam, as if trying to see the future. She asks him again who the man is, as at this point, he knows him better than she does. She asks him what he's like, and if Gauss likes him. Gauss grimaces extravagantly, as this is the great-great-grandmother of all loaded questions. Marion looks him in the eye and orders him to tell her his personal impression of Adam Wheeler. Gauss replies that he's a nice enough guy. She questions this, and Gauss clicks his tongue. He admits that he doesn't like him all that much. They're civil, but he'll always be a little bit too smug and a little bit too clever. He just grates, but he wouldn't throw someone in a cell for that. Marion asks if she likes him. Gauss begins to speak, but stops and looks away. Over time, a soft smile develops on his face, one which Marion doesn't recall ever seen before, not in a working relationship going back years. Yeah, he says. He's the one. Full name, Adam Bellamy Wheeler, born February 27th, 1962, in Henge, Derbyshire, United Kingdom, to Rosemary Leah Wheeler, née Witz, and Jonathan Jack Philip Wheeler. No siblings. Early education, Henge Church of England Primary School, Matlock All Saints Secondary School. Demonstrated great musical acuity from an early age. By age 16, had begun to be recognized as one of the most gifted classical violinists of his generation. Attended the Royal College of... Marion skips 3 pages. After sustaining a minor injury while on tour, he encountered SCP-4051, which had infested a wing of the hospital where he received treatment. SCP-4051 was protected by an unusual form of anti-memetic camouflage, to which Wheeler, like an estimated 1 in 145,000 individuals worldwide, was and remains immune. His attempt to alert authorities to the infestation's presence was intercepted by a Foundation listening station. Operative Marion A. Hutchinson, 100A19331, then a field agent based in another page. Resistant to conventional memory erasure procedures, Hutchinson applied successfully for an exemption, arguing that even with his memories left intact, it would be impossible for Wheeler to share the details of SCP-4051. They subsequently became romantically involved. Marion sarcastically comments on the featureless gray sphere of a biographer and how hooked she is by it stating that they subsequently became romantically involved. The biography is contentless beyond this point. Adam Wheeler's life spent touring, playing, lecturing, and occasionally conducting, writing, and composing is documented in exhaustive, pointless detail. He withstands background checks and surveillance and consistently demonstrates himself to represent zero risk of leak. He eventually receives the extremely low clearance level normally granted to long-term Foundation external partners of Foundationers. They get married. She takes his name, which she, reading, considers faintly unrealistic. Blah, blah. There's nothing about his personality. Nothing about their relationship. No content. She remembers acquiring SCP-4051. There was no one there. She remembers nothing. Up until the end of the 3rd round of questioning, Adam Wheeler assumes good faith. He figures the repetition is a due diligence tick, a corporate procedural requirement. It's only when they start over from "What's your name?" with a brand new interviewer for the 4th time that he finally gets it. They don't like him, and they don't care what he thinks his name is. They're trying to grind him down until he can't think, until he's just dust particles they can sift through for data. He reacts badly to this realization. He asks for his wife, and asks for his wife, and they ignore him, and they ignore him, and she persistently fails to appear until it becomes a cold form of torture. The questions keep coming, and nothing stops them. Not answering truthfully, not answering, not lying, not rambling off on tangents. They don't stop until he begins falling asleep in the middle of his own sentences. He wakes up in a standard humanoid containment unit, a stackable one-bedroom apartment with holographic fake windows, impregnable walls, and extensive, discrete modifications for the security and monitoring of anomalous entities. This one is on the first basement level, but he can't tell that. The bright, quote, light, unquote, pouring in through the main living area window is authentic enough to tan. He wakes up on the couch with a start, feeling creaky and dehydrated. He realizes that he slept in his suit and that his suit is creased. He hates that sensation of not looking his best, or at least presentable. That's going to gnaw away at him until he can find, at minimum, a razor and a change of shirt. What woke him was the heavy metallic clack of the door unlocking. He looks up, rubbing his eyes. It's his wife. He leaps up and rushes over to meet her. She stops him a few paces short with a gesture and a cold smile. And that hurts. It hurts more than anything. So it really happened. SCP-4987 has bitten out the part of Marion Wheeler which cared about him. She wasn't absent because of some unrelated K-class outbreak. She just chose to be elsewhere. Indifferent. So he doesn't embrace her. He stands at a polite distance and asks how she's feeling and if she slept. She replies that she's fine, and he says that he can tell that she's had her coffee. He asks if she's eaten, and then says that he'll make her something. The unit has a rudimentary kitchen area. He goes through and starts exploring the cupboards. He remarks that there must be something edible around here. Eggs and milk, at least. He's ashamed to say he more or less fell asleep where he was standing when they put him in here, so he hasn't had a chance to scout. Or maybe they keep the place empty and the food arrives through a slot in the wall. Marion begins to call him Mr. Wheeler, but he shoots her a disappointed look, so she calls him Adam instead. She tells him to come and sit down, as he's right. There's nothing in any of those cupboards. He closes the cupboard and sits opposite her at the kitchen table. He suggests scrambled eggs on granary toast, with a lot of garlic in the eggs. That's what they both need right now, particularly her, because if he doesn't make something substantial for her, she ends up drinking those wretched wallpaper paste milkshakes 7 days a week, or she skips the meal entirely. Marion replies years. But she doesn't remember him. Adam just says that that's fine, and he doubts that's going to be a serious problem. She's told him many times about her own people who've lost themselves in the work and had to bootstrap their own personalities a second time. She loves watching it. It's like watching butterflies emerge from chrysalids. The best of her people can turn that around in 10 weeks, so imagine how fast it's going to be for her. Marion replies, no, in a clinical, matter-of-fact tone. She's afraid it's not possible. She can't begin a new relationship right now, certainly not something as serious as a marriage. He has nominal clearance, so he knows what they do. She has responsibilities. She does not have time. Adam replies that this isn't new, it's pre-existing. But she says no. That relationship is ended now, and they are somewhere else. Adam stares at her for a long moment, thin-lipped and far from happy. He asks her what she remembers, and the question is so open-ended that Marion doesn't manage to respond verbally. She just spreads her hands slightly, the gesture saying, what? Adam says that she doesn't remember, and SCP-4987 also clearly ate the part of her which would care if she forgot him, and additionally the part of her which cares about brunch. What else has she forgotten would be a stupid question to ask, so instead he's asking her what's left. He wants her to tell him everything she can remember from 1995 to right now. It's still a farcical question at face value, and Marion's first instinct is to dismiss it as such, but she thinks again. She thinks, intending to genuinely try to answer the question, and she finds gaps. There's a dearth of specifics. It's like being asked to say something and immediately forgetting all words. She says that she remembers working and driving home, and then sleep, and then driving back to work. Big, hostile buildings, drug regimens, containment procedures, endless piles of opaque numbers, personal fitness drills, running, calculating, never, ever stopping calculating. She remembers, with unfair clarity, a large variety of extremely bad dreams. And other than that, nothing. A huge, deep, ragged-edged black pit. Adam asks if she remembers nothing good. When she comes home, on the night she makes it home, she's ready to fold up. It has never been an easy job, but these past few years have been the worst they've ever been, because she's coming to the conclusion of something gigantic. She has explained to him how it is that she can never tell him, really, what it is that she does, without the act of her telling him, killing him. And he couldn't stand that at first, and he still hates her job and thinks it's a monstrous farce, but he trusted her in that, and he stopped asking. But he can tell, from the rattle in her hands and the things she doesn't say, and the way she sleeps, that there's some kind of war going on back here, and she's losing people to it, and she's almost at the end, and she's going to win. So he scrambles her eggs, and he plays the violin for her, and between them they hack out about 3/10 of what they would consider normalcy. Not because she can't do this without him. She could take the whole universe by herself if she really had to, but she doesn't have to. It didn't happen instantly, but it happened pretty damn fast. They had music in common at first. Bach and Mendelssohn.
What is it?
They had tobacco in common and a mutual hatred of the X-Files. Then it was coffee and wine. And then after some time it became hiking and bird-watching and Perseid meteors. They like Bruce Lee flicks. They watch Law and Order and Jeopardy, and they read stacks and stacks of books. No, in fairness, it's mainly him for the books. She doesn't have the long-term time to spare anymore. He pinches the bridge of his nose for a second. Any two people can find that much common ground. Just being in the same place for years doesn't count for anything. What do they have? They communicate, he says, better than anybody he's seen. They can be apart for 2 months while he's on tour or she's overseas and snap right back and pick up a conversation from the word they left off. They are connected. They're in the same headspace. She'll see it all. It'll happen again just as fast. She's just got to give it a chance. Marion is almost there. She sees the shape of what Adam is describing. It's distant and unclear, but if she concentrates, she might be able to bring it into focus. It worries her for nebulous reasons she can't completely articulate, but she can almost understand how there could be room for it. How it could lock into her life as it currently exists and still make sense. But Adam just said something crucial. He said a key word, which means the marriage counseling session is over, and this is now a situation. Marion can't ignore it. She forces herself to drop the other thread and seize this one. What war? She asks. And now Adam really doesn't know what's happening.
You don't know?
Good God, he says. The war, Marion. He doesn't know how else to describe it. What war? She asks again. How many people? Adam doesn't know. There are names. Names she stops mentioning, and then she ignores him when he brings them up again. He assumes there are reasons. He doesn't know the specifics, but how could he know?
She's forgotten.
Why doesn't she know?
The war.
Marion races through the reasoning. The existence of a war computes. It confirms long-term existing suspicions. It could have been going on for years without her realizing it. It makes sense to her that she could be fighting it, winning even, and not know, managing her own memories or losing them in skirmishes. This certainly won't be the first time she's uncovered it. It makes sense that Adam, naturally gifted with the mental equivalent of a thick layer of blubber, could stand on the edge of the conflict and dimly be able to perceive it. And the division, so understaffed. People are disappearing around her. She begins to ask a question, but stops dead in the middle of the thought, as if the thought itself was stolen out of her. She begins to ask again about them getting back together, but this time hard instinct seizes her around the midsection and bodily hauls her back from thinking a thought, which it knows would kill her. She's Wile E. Coyote. She's already run off the edge of a precipice into clear air, and thinking that thought would be like looking down. She feels SCP-4987 moving around her, abstractly bound to her, a winking speck of glitter in her eye. She says that something's wrong. Adam scratches at his own eye and asks if she sees that. She asks in turn, how can he see that? Adam replies that he has a mild immunity to anti-memetic influence. He knows it's in his file.
You can't fully remember it. She can't fully remember you. The anomaly will exist. The anomaly will persevere, but you must fight it. Fight it!
And he knows Marion has read the file, but apparently it needs to be said again. He can tell when something is fritzing with his memories. He can resist it, up to a point. So he was hoping to have a relaxed conversation over coffee and get around to this topic organically, but he's going to have to skip to the end. He has the impression that SCP-4987 is trying to kill him. No, Marion replies. That's not its behavior model. It doesn't sustain itself that way, by eating people. It eats memories, and it's never done this. Not to her, to him, or anybody.
They're trying to protect you from...
Not since the very early days. It's tame. It does exactly what she tells it to do. Even when she's waiting, and she's bored, and she lets it eat her short term, it sits and waits to be told to eat. Adam asks what it's doing to them then. He's getting nervy and won't let go of his eye. He stands up and backs away. He would like it if they could figure this out quickly, as they don't have a way to put SCP-4987 down. There's a sound in Marion's mind, but not in her ear, like a distant chorus of baying dogs. She stands too, and moves after Adam into the middle of the containment unit. She says that it's trying to protect him. He asks how wiping her memory of him protects him, but she can't explain. And she can't explain why she can't explain, as she doesn't fully know herself. She says something redacted, and that he can't be here. He can't be in her life. He has to leave, or he's going to die. Adam replies that he's not leaving her. That's why they got married, in the end. It was scintillatingly obvious to both of them, very early on, that they were forever, but he wanted to get it on the public record. He stood up in front of everybody he respects, and he swore to them that he would protect her, forever. SCP-4987 is agitated. Marion feels it flitting around the room, incoherent, trying to tell her what it needs. She says with sudden, actinic clarity that she must have made an identical promise. Adam doubles over, blinded in both eyes now. Closing his eyes does nothing. Covering his eyes does nothing. The gold-white light is strobing for him, moving into violet. He panics. He asks her to help him, as he can't see. He reaches out unsteadily for Marion's hand. She lets him take it and pulls her close. The light doesn't fade. He clings to her for a few moments, and she holds on to him until he realizes that SCP-4987 is completely within her control, and this is all intentional. He asks her if she's going to do this. This is the Foundation mandate. This is what her definition of protect amounts to. She's got no idea what she's about to do to herself. She doesn't even know him. She replies that she thinks she knows. He tells her that she will feel this for the rest of her life. Every day she'll wake up with a sick, cold feeling in her stomach where there used to be a real life, and she'll wonder why. Marion tells him that she's going to win this war. She'll beat the universe, and then she will come and find out why. Adam holds on to her for another long moment. He can hear the baying now, too, and he can even barely perceive what it is, far off behind the hill, that SCP-4987 is frantic about. That distant dot, that fleeting secondhand glimpse of the shape of it, far off, is enough to terrify him. He has faith. He knows how fast Marion can put the jigsaw pieces back together, work against a universe which makes no sense to her, isolate the truth. He knows she can take the universe. But a sharp misgiving jabs him in the stomach, and he can't stop himself saying, "And what if you lose?" She kisses him.
This is the end of the video. Bye, everyone! Da da da! Oh, yeah, sorry. Da da da!